Yes.
The Leaf Spring Army sends its regards.
Hello, everyone. I'm the Enforcer, and I'm accompanied by Enforcer Matt.
And good evening, folks. It's Enforcer Matt, and welcome back to day 1501 of the War News stream tonight. And we also have a more major news and actually an active situation going down right now inside of Iran. We've seen that U.S. forces have attacked Iranian ground forces, appearing to try to rescue the F-15 pilot, which is believed to be in the area in which this gunfire is breaking out. We've also heard that U.S. officials have threatened to unleash hell on Iran in 48 hours unless they make a deal, and we'll have to see how that turns out. And also, apparently an Iranian nuclear power plant was targeted yet again today, and we have a lot of news, and it's good to see you all once again.
And of course, we're going to cover the past 24 hours of news from around the world, as we have been able to hear significant developments from the Middle East, North Africa, Western Europe, Eastern Europe, East Asia, and also the United States of America as well over the course of the day. At this moment in time, the United States Combat Search and Air Rescue teams of the United States Air Force are currently once again conducting another sweep and an attempted recovery of the weapons systems operator on the ground right now within southwestern Tehran. We do understand that the situation is incredibly strenuous, not only for the U.S., but also for Iran, as both sides are racing to find and capture the pilot before the other. Right now, the United States is engaging some significant forces inside of the Islamic Republic of Iran within this region, and we also understand that Iranian civilians are flooding the area in an attempt to try and cash in on the bounty, and are breaking out into the nearby mountainsides and plains to be able to see if they can try and find this pilot before either the Iranian military or the U.S. military can, so that way they can try and cash in on the fairly large bounty of nearly $60,000 US for the capture of this pilot alive and him being handed over to the Islamic Republic of Iran's armed forces. We also understand that while this is going on, the United States has been conducting and still conducting a large airstrike campaign throughout the Islamic Republic of Iran, and has struck a large amount of targets throughout the country, including those within Tehran, Tabriz, Shiraz, the Gulf Coast itself, or more so, sorry, not the Gulf Coast, but the Persian Gulf Coast is the best way to explain that. And we've also been able to hear that the United States president has now issued an ultimatum that the Islamic Republic of Iran must find a way to open the Strait of Hormuz within the next 48 hours, or the United States is going to start bombarding critical infrastructure throughout the country. We have also been able to see additional developments as well inside of Kuwait and Qatar that significant attacks have still been conducted over the course of the day. And an Iranian-aligned Iraqi militia has taken credit for targeting and attacking U.S. forces inside of Kuwait over the conflict so far. We have also seen further developments letting us know a little bit more about how the F-15E was shot down yesterday, as the Islamic Republic of Iran did announce today that they had used a new weapon to be able to shoot down the F-15E. This led many people to wonder what it could be, and one Israeli media outlet published a story today saying that it was an S-500, and we have to tell y'all that the actual weapon is still quite concerning, but not as major as an S-500 being given to Iran, considering that the Russians only have one of those that's operational, and they probably wouldn't give it to Iran. We've also been able to see that at the same time, the Israelis did come under several more Iranian missile attacks and ballistic missile barrages over the course of the day, and we've also heard further developments that the United States is starting to run critically low on its entire global supply of JASSMs. Out of the 2,400 that the United States had at the start of the war, we only have about 352 of them left, meaning that we've expended most, if not all, of our strategic stockpiles of JASSM-ER missiles, which are low-visibility, near-stealth missiles, over the course of about 5 weeks of war with the Islamic Republic of Iran. We have also seen that the People's Republic of China is beginning to dump treasury bonds like there's no tomorrow, and I guess they're dropping it like it's hot in a sort of a sense. And we've also been able to see that the Ukrainian armed forces have been confirmed to have set up 3 bases in western Libya to be able to conduct attacks against Russian tankers that are attempting to travel through the strait between Sicily and the mainland of Tunisia. We have also heard additional developments within the United States of America that major airlifts are still being conducted into the Middle East to try and support the U.S. combat operations within that area, and we've also gotten some further developments out of the United States today, including the cost of gas rising rapidly on consumer price indexes, and also the United States government issuing letters to satellite photography companies telling them that they would love, and generally, of course, there's a little bit of an emphasis on love, more so like you're going to, not publish any more satellite photography from the Middle East and the ongoing conflict, because of reasons. Generally, this would give us an idea that the U.S. government does not want the public here in the United States of America to see how the war is actually going, even with the President of the United States saying that we've completely won the war. And if we completely won the war, then satellite photography ought to prove that undoubtedly. But we do understand that the war is still going on as of this moment right now, and was going on when the President made that statement. Otherwise, we wouldn't be threatening the Iranians to reopen the Strait of Hormuz. The war would be over and the strait would be open. We've also been able to see that further on up and inside of Europe, the Federal Republic of Germany has now decreed by law that travel permission must be found for able-bodied military-age German citizens who are attempting to leave the country for any period longer than 3 months. They now must actually get travel permission and travel papers from the Federal Republic of Germany to be able to leave the country. Meanwhile, the Ukrainian armed forces have been laying down hell on the Russian Federation over the course of the day and have been able to destroy an entire S-400 battery in Crimea and also another significant plant inside the area of the Volga River. The Ukrainian armed forces have also inflicted significant losses onto the Russian Federation as well, and have continued to see that they are still holding the upper hand on the battlefield in that conflict. But before we get on into all of this news, starting with our largest stories first and then working our way on down to the smaller stories throughout the night, we actually have breaking news that is developing right now here on air. And Matthew, what do we got?
Okay, so we do have some breaking news. This is actually very big news, in fact. Apparently, Iran has just launched a major infrastructure strike on Kuwait, and this is one of the first times we've seen this so far. It looks like Kuwait has had damage to multiple power generation stations, and also, get this, apparently the water desalination plants have been struck inside of Kuwait. So they're saying there's significant damage after this drone attack was launched by Iran, and apparently this is a major shift because we've been seeing that so far Iran has held off from striking civilian infrastructure inside the Gulf states. And largely, that's because the U.S. has held off from striking Iran's critical infrastructure for the most part. It now appears that Iran has crossed that red line and they've begun to attack civilian infrastructure, specifically trying to hurt the water supply inside of Kuwait. So we're waiting to see if there are follow-up attacks, but that's a very big shift, certainly. But Enforcer, what say you?
And it does now appear that the Islamic Republic of Iran, according to the Kingdom of Kuwait, is attempting to target Kuwait's power infrastructure and also water desalination infrastructure as well. Both of these systems are vital to the daily maintenance of life inside of the Kingdom of Kuwait, meaning that the Islamic Republic of Iran is now attempting to terrorize and cause significant suffering to the civilian population of the Kingdom of Kuwait. Meaning that at this point, the United States could actually justify reciprocal attacks of that type and variety, especially if severe damage has been caused to those Kuwaiti facilities of the power plant and desalination plant type. The Geneva Convention only lasts as long as both sides uphold it, and once one side generally breaks a convention within the Geneva Convention, that largely allows the other side to then do the same in turn if they would wish. But once again, there's still an emphasis on trying to follow the Geneva Convention as much as possible, even if the other side is conducting war criminal like actions. But nevertheless, this is a very significant development, may be showing us that massive escalation may soon follow by U.S. and Israeli forces on the Islamic Republic of Iran, and particularly U.S. forces, if the United States uses this as a military justification to begin strikes of this caliber and type on Iranian infrastructure of similar design. So at the moment, that is a breaking news story that is happening right now live on air. We'll be making sure to keep developments up to date here on air and make sure to break the news to y'all when we get more of it coming out of Kuwait at this moment, especially if we're able to get video or picture evidence showing any significant damage to the desalination plants or the power infrastructure inside of that small kingdom. But with that, it is time for us to get on into all of our major news for the night. And of course, we are going to be moving into our largest story of the day, which is still transpiring at this moment right now on air. Inside of southwestern Iran, the story of the downed weapons systems operator on board the F-15E has largely been dominating headlines and been dominating public attention. As currently this pilot is still missing, the Islamic Republic of Iran has not captured him, and the United States of America has not really been able to ascertain his location and evacuate him out of the Islamic Republic of Iran yet, from what we understand on air while we're making these statements right now. Currently, combat search and rescue operations are still ongoing by the U.S. Air Force to attempt to find the downed WSO officer and to be able to recover him, but it is a race against time. We had a large amount of video evidence today and picture evidence showing us and letting us hear the sound of the HH-60 Blackhawks that the U.S. Air Force is operating within this area that are attempting to fly around and try and find the position of the weapons systems operator, which we can actually hear one of these Blackhawks in this clip right here.
That does sound like it for sure. What in the world that light at the bottom?
I don't really know, actually. Like, I gotta be honest with you there.
It's really interesting because that sounds like a full volume Black Hawk or whatever helicopter that is. It's a very full volume. It's interesting that they didn't try to use what is that? The Silent Hawk? There's like a silent version that has like a silent rotor system on it that doesn't make nearly as much noise. I think they used it on the raid on Bin Laden's compound back in the day. But it's interesting. It sounds like it's a full volume version of it.
And it actually is. From what we understand, the U.S.'s combat search and air rescue teams of the U.S. Air Force use a specialized variant of the Black Hawk, which is actually called the HH, I have such a hard time saying that, folks, 60G Pave Hawk, which is right here. This one is actually specialized for the search and rescue operations of these combat SAR teams, and actually has a refueling probe that extends out of the front of the helicopter, which allows for them to conduct extended aerial operations to be able to try and find the pilots and also be able to conduct long-range insertion operations for the larger part, or penetration operations to be able to fly as deep into enemy airspace as possible to be able to recover a pilot wherever they are. That's also why yesterday, folks, when we were watching the videos of these Blackhawks or Pavehawks more so coming in, we actually saw that they were following a C-130 into the area. That C-130 is most likely a refueling variant of the C-130 that is there to support the helicopters, and while it's able to try and surveil the area as well and try and find the missing pilot, these Blackhawks are the ones that generally take up most of that part of the mission for themselves, and they are able to continue to conduct these operations over a long period of times thanks to their ability to refuel from that C-130. So we understand that these are the helicopters that they have right now down there inside of southwestern Iran, and that's also why we can hear them so easily. because there really is no way, sadly, folks, to make this one stealth. If they tried to use something like a Silent Hawk, which we really don't know much about, and there's not really a lot of pictures of it in the public, because apparently only a few of them exist, and they're exceptionally rare for them to ever really be used, especially where anyone can see them or know about them. This refueling probe would generally make the entire thing non-stealth. It would send back a radar signature that would be large enough it would light up like a Christmas tree. So sadly, they wouldn't be able to use that one because that one doesn't have extremely long range from what we know because it doesn't have a refueling probe. But this one does, and it's specialized for the combat SAR operations that they're currently conducting right now. We also got a little bit more information about this as well. We saw a picture that was taken from inside of Iran showing us one of those HH-60 Pavehawks flying around in the dark over the country trying to find this missing WSO operator. We also were able to hear that the search is still ongoing at this moment, and it is certainly becoming a race for time. I also want to make sure to reiterate to folks, from what we understand, the U.S. combat search and air rescue operations are ongoing at the moment, and apparently began under the cover of darkness to be able to try and give the U.S. Air Force a little bit more time to be able to try and find this pilot before Iranian air defenses are able to see the helicopters flying around in broad daylight and attempt to cause significant damage, forcing them to ground the helicopters or directly shooting them down with the loss of those helicopter crews. This is also a significant race against time at the moment because right now, Iranian civilians are flooding into the area about as damn near as much as they can. From what we know, a lot of them are trying to cash in on the $60,000 US bounty that the Iranian government has offered if someone's able to capture this pilot and turn them in alive to Iranian authorities. And we see that the highways into these regions right now are flooded with people who are driving in and apparently just pulling over and breaking out into the mountainsides, attempting to try and find this missing weapons systems operator. There's a video of the highway literally streaming with people driving in.
And these are just regular Iranian civilians flooding in here?
Yeah, these are just regular Iranian civilians. They just want to try and cash in on the bounty, apparently.
That's nuts.
I mean, it's unreal. So right now, folks, you can kind of get an idea the pressure is on to find this guy, because with this many people combing the area, literally just random people from Iran trying to get the cash from the bounty, and the Iranian government searching for the guy, and we're searching for the guy at the same time, one of these three groups is going to find them. And two of them are Iranian aligned, meaning the guy might end up being captured by the Iranians, and one of them is our side, which is trying to find them right now as well. Currently, we've also been able to hear that searches by the Iranians are still ongoing as well, and we were actually able to see some footage that was published from the mountainsides of the Iranians that did break out into the hills, and apparently were even equipped with flashlights and other kinds of equipment to be able to try and find this missing pilot.
Well, it certainly seems like there's definitely still a good number of Iranian civilians, apparently, that support the regime for the most part, or they're extremely greedy, and they would, obviously turn over the pilot or the WSO. That's a bad sign.
Yeah, it's not really a good sign at all. And we've also been able to hear additionally that in the midst of all of this that is going on, apparently the Iranians did try and fire off some form of a missile-based air defense system. We don't really know what this is, but we were able to see this right here, and this was a pretty wild clip to say the least. We hear several loud explosions, and we see this large ball of light flying through the sky, and then it slams into the ground and explodes.
Jeez, man. This is crazy. What the hell is going on? This is like pure chaos in this video right here. Was that an air defense missile being fired that malfunctioned or something?
It looks likely that it was an air defense missile that the Iranians tried to fire that failed. Apparently it was faulty. That's what we're thinking at the moment, but to be entirely honest with you all right now, beyond knowing where this was inside of Iran, due to it being the pitch black of night, we really can't tell what it was, but it seems to be highly likely an air defense missile that they tried to fire off that failed and then floundered and crashed basically right near to the launcher.
That's wild right there. And also, all these booms happening in the background, like outside of the air defense missile, going toward the ground, obviously. There's also like some huge explosions happening in the background. So was this believed to be the area where the U.S. Special Forces were on the helicopters going in? Is that what the report is? Because I'm not really clear on this clip.
We don't know. This seemed to be a little bit further over towards the east, so this might have just been some form of a radar-based surface-to-air missile system that was trying to fire at a U.S. aircraft that it got a lock on, and then the missile went errant and crashed into the ground just about a few miles away from the launcher. That's what we're kind of thinking right now, but once again, I got to tell you, and I got to tell everyone in the audience, I'm trying to piece this together the best we can from a 20-second clip in the middle of the night, so that might be incorrect at the moment.
Yeah, and also, by the way, I want to say something real quick. I see a lot of people in the chat saying that the weapon system officer of the F-15 has been recovered. We have not seen any confirmation whatsoever that that individual has been recovered. Obviously, we hope they get recovered quick because it's imperative the U.S. gets him back first before the Iranians get to them. But whoever's out there reporting that he's been recovered, that is not confirmed. It's possible, but we have not heard anything from U.S. officials about that guy being recovered yet, or the woman either. So we're not really sure.
We're watching certain channels, folks, to see when the published statement will come out that the WSO has been recovered. But at the moment, folks, we're looking at these three channels, and until we get statements from one of these three channels, we're not taking anything else. Either the CENTCOM's area of responsibility is going to put out a published statement, the Department of the Air Force is going to put out a published statement, the Department of Defense is going to put out a published statement, or the President of the United States, which actually makes four, is going to put out a published statement. If anyone other than those four groups says that the guy has made it out alive and he has been recovered by combat search and air rescue teams, there is absolutely no corroboration or proof at the moment to their claims that the guy's been recovered. They're basically just coming up with false stories and lies to try and sell clicks, which we don't do here on this channel. We are waiting for official coverage and official reports from the Department of Defense and the United States government to some extent to be able to confirm that the guy's been recovered. And up until then, anyone saying otherwise and saying that the guy has been successfully evacuated out of the country is really conducting a measure and an exercise of wishful thinking, and it's basically coming up with a fantasy, because we do not have any proof at this moment that the guy's been recovered successfly. We hope that he is.
Also, by the way, got some breaking news here for a second. There's a video that has just been, I just spotted this video. It's apparently making the rounds right now. It was just posted about 8 minutes ago. We definitely cannot show this on the air. Absolutely not. It's very graphic. But there is a video circulating around which appears to show the bodies of several individuals who are no longer alive anymore, apparently all over the ground, who are apparently looking for the American pilot. And the early reports, and take it with a grain of salt because we haven't confirmed this yet, but there's reports to be that there are plainclothed IRGC forces that might have gotten into a firefight with U.S. forces that were searching for the missing airmen. So I sadly can't show the video, but it appears to be from Iran. I'm scanning through it real quick. And there's a lot of deceased individuals here in this video. So it does appear to be possibly a result of a battle, but we just don't know the details about this. There's a lot of, killing going on right now inside of Iran. So we don't know who this is, but we'll keep an eye out though. But that's possibly a pretty big lead right there.
Also, can you put that under the likes tab really quickly so that we can take a look at it as well and give people a brief summary? We can't show it to y'all on air, folks. It's going to be too graphic. Anything that shows an actual deceased individual we cannot show because of YouTube's terms of service, but I might be able to give y'all a little bit of a description of what the video looks like and what we're generally getting at this point right now. So at the moment, at the beginning of the video, it's the pitch black of night, showing that this video was filmed quite recently. I'm going to have to mute that there. And we can see them running up with flashlights to a stone on what appears to be a hillside. It's a fairly large boulder, more so. And a large group of people are gathered around, and it appears that someone clad mostly in dark-colored clothes, it looks like navy blue and black, is laying near to the boulder, along with another person that's on the other side of the boulder, both of them appearing to have taken gunshots and are laying deceased on the ground. We can see people taking a further look at them and trying to figure out what exactly happened to them, but this might be giving us an idea that there has been some sort of a small skirmish between U.S. and IRGC forces as both sides are still racing to try and recover the WSO for both purposes, for us to get him out of there and for the Iranians to be able to successfully capture him and announce that they finally captured a single American pilot over the course of the 5-week-long war that's been ongoing at this point. But that appears to largely be the clip at the moment. Sadly, once again, folks, we cannot show that to you all here on air. And we really can't repost that on our Twitter as well, because if we pop the Twitter up on air, that video might show up, and then that could cause some issues with YouTube. However, moving us on out of that development, as we are now understanding that there has been some form of a firefight, down on the ground in that region in between U.S. and IRGC forces or Iranian civilians. We have also, or actually, folks, there's an unlikely chance, and I have to put this out there, folks, because there is this chance. There is a chance that that could have been the work of the weapons systems operator, and that these guys were about to find him, and he busted some caps on him and then fled from the area, and these guys are laying there dead as an aftermath of that encounter. Because, once again, I do have to make it clear, folks, that a pilot like that generally has to make the decision whether or not they're willing to be captured, and if they're not willing to be captured, they can really take any actions they deem necessary to be able to try and survive and evade a capture by enemy forces. So there is a very small chance that it might have actually been the work in the handicraft of the WSO, and he's maybe somewhere nearby. But anyways, moving us on out of that, we have been able to hear, in the midst of this ongoing search and rescue effort, which is largely a race against time at this point, that it appears that the Iranians have announced that they targeted the U.S. fighter jet with the new air defense system. And there has been a huge amount of speculation about this, folks, today. And we got to tell y'all, just up front, this is not going to be as crazy or wild as y'all think it's going to be. It actually ends up becoming fairly mundane. It's a new system, and it is not Iranian in origin. It is Russian, but it's not an S-500. I just want to tell y'all that up front before we even get into the story. According to the Iranian government, which issued a statement through Reuters, Reuters more so corroborated the statement that the Iranian government made. Iran used a new air defense system on Friday to target a U.S. fighter jet, according to Iran's Qatam al-Anbiya Joint Military Command, which stated this today on Saturday. A spokesperson for the Joint Military Command said the country would definitely achieve full control over its airspace, according to Iranian state media. Not long after that, some Israeli media outlets started to run the story that an S-500 had been sent into the from the Russian Federation into the Islamic Republic of Iran, and according to Israeli media, they stated the following: "It appears that Russia supplied Iran with the S-500 system." This is madness. It is madness because it just didn't turn out to be true from what we can tell. I mean, this is highly unlikely, if not impossible, to happen. To give you all a little bit of an idea or a background, in case you're only here for the Iran war and you haven't watched our channel for a while, we have covered the Ukraine war religiously, and we'll be covering it again later tonight, for 1,501 days, which is literally every day that the Ukraine war has been going on, and that's actually when this channel largely started. We, for that reason, are very well familiarized with Russian weapon systems, the numbers of those weapon systems, and the ability of the Russian Federation to be able to export such weapon systems abroad due to the supply chain concerns and the availability concerns for their own forces inside of the Southern Military District that are fighting the war in Ukraine. The Russian Federation, from what we know publicly, only has a singular S-500 air defense battery. And while they have been attempting to make a second one, we have never gotten confirmation that a second one has been built and has been brought up to an operational capacity. For that reason, at the moment, we know that the Russians only have one operational S-500 air defense battery, and that S-500 air defense battery is made up of about 9 to 10 vehicles, but it is a singular unit system. You cannot take one truck out of that battery and send it to Iran. It would largely be usable. If you just send the radar, there's no launchers to accompany it, the system's useless. If you send a launcher, there's no radar to accompany it, so the entire system is useless. The whole thing has to go to Iran, or it has to stay in Russia. And the S-500 air defense system is the most advanced air defense system that the Russian Federation has in its arsenal, and they only have the singular one that we know of. It would be exorbitantly unlikely, if not impossible, for Russia's national security concerns for them to send their only S-500, the highest quality air defense system they have in theory, down to Iran and allow the Iranian military to use it. Let me give you all this hypothetical scenario, because this is what the Russians are thinking, and this is why they wouldn't send it. What if the Iranian government does somehow collapse, and then they lose their most advanced air defense system, only one of its type that they have, and it falls right into the hands of the United States for them to pick it apart and figure out what the air defense system is capable of and what its weak points are? That would be a humongous national security risk for the Russians. They wouldn't send it. But we did find out, thanks to some sleuthing and investigative journalism by Enforcer Matt and also some of our viewers here in the LSA, what the air defense system most likely is. And I have to say, folks, that while we're very certain about this claim we're about to be making here, I once again want to tell y'all that while we are certain, it's not absolutely confirmed. We're working off the following facts to find the conclusion. 1, the Iranians have announced that it's a new system. 2, it was most likely not a system that used any form of active or passive radar, meaning that it was some sort of a man-pad, highly likely. And then third, this system had to most likely be provided by a foreign country. And this led us to find out that in February of this year, the Islamic Republic of Iran had announced that they had ordered a contract with the Russian Federation for a certain kind of a new man-pad that they do not have in their arsenal, but they were going to have here in the very near future, which is the 9K333 Verba. The Verba is largely a modernization in a way of the Igla manpad system, which the Russian Federation has used quite significantly in prior conflicts, and is also heavily present inside of the war in Ukraine. Actually, as a matter of fact, I'm about to show you all this, and it's going to be mind-blowing. This is an Igla. This is a Verba. The difference is basically negligible. The real meat of the matter here is that why they're technically different is that the Verba allows for just a little bit better target acquisition, and the missile is slightly more maneuverable. That's about it. That's really the only difference between an Igla and a Verba. So the Verbas are fairly analogous sorts of air defense manpads to what the Iranians already had access to, because the Iranians already had a significant number of Iglas and Strelas as far as manpads go inside of their arsenal. The Verba is new for them, and so technically it would meet the qualification of a new weapon, but it's not incredibly complex, incredibly advanced, or for that matter, incredibly dangerous to U.S. forces as long as you're not flying, like lower than 15,000 feet and, in an incredibly slow speed. This thing generally wouldn't pose that much of a significant risk. So basically, it's the Russian equivalent of the AIM-92 Stinger, or the FIM-92 Stinger, is the best way to put it. But this is the actual manpad that we believe the Iranians had that they used to try and shoot down the F-15. It basically meets all the criteria. It would be a new weapon system. We already know that the Russians did send a ship down to Iran to drop off some weapons to them just recently. The Iranian forces would highly likely already be trained on an analogous platform, which would be the Igla, considering the Iranians have this system. And 3, it is foreign provided, and it is technically new. So it would meet all the criteria from the information that we have right now that would fit the bill that this is most likely the weapon system that they shot the F-15 down with. Certainly not an S-500. And a lot of people are currently talking right now in the chat about this very topic, about whether or not this new air defense system was provided by the Russians, or whether it was provided by someone else. And Matthew, what are people thinking about that? And what are you thinking about that as well?
Okay, so this has been a hot topic to say the least, because I was doing research all day long today to figure out what Iran had received, and going back many months in the prior months, that is, to try to figure out what Iran has gotten and who they got it from. So I actually put out a tweet today saying, once again, the claim from the Israeli media that allegedly that the Russians might have given an S-500 system to Iran. But of course, I made the point to say it was obviously not confirmed, and we don't know. But of course, that didn't stop people from going berserk anyway. But the end result here is, like the enforcer mentioned, I was able to find out that there was a deal that was finalized back in the last week of February of this year between the Russians and the Iranians for about 500 of these 9K333 Verbas, these manpads, which appear to use infrared targeting, which seems to be the type of targeting that was used to take down those U.S. Air Force aircraft on Friday. So also, by the way, Iran even came out and said today that yesterday, when all the aircraft was shot down, that was the first day that they started fielding a brand new weapon system, which we believe to be the Verba manpad. So that would say Russia gave it to Iran. If that is the weapon that was used, it's Russia handing over a brand new weapon. So what do you think about that? 46% said it is Russia that gave Iran a new system, while 21% said Iran probably already had it available in their arsenal and simply decided to whip it out, and 20% said China gave Iran a new system. And at this point, I am heavily leaning toward the fact that Russia likely delivered the Verba. They already had the deal signed. It was already finalized. The only thing that was left is delivery. And it seems like Russia might have delivered based on everything we're seeing today. Of course, we don't have the exact confirmation of the weapon, but all the details seem to line up, sort of pointing at this one and also pointing at Russia as well, which is problematic because that means Russia might have just facilitated the shooting down of several high-profile U.S. aircraft. So that's going to be a big one if confirmed. But Enforcer, what say you?
I'd have to say that, in my opinion, I would believe that this is most likely the weapon system, highly likely, as a matter of fact, the weapon system that was provided that the Iranians have spoken of that was used to shoot down the F-15. We know that a Majid was used to shoot down the A-10 Warthog. We know that without a doubt. So we know that that one was shot down by a manpad. And the F-15 was highly likely also shot down by a manpad as well. And I'm about to tell y'all something that would let us know why that would be the case. No matter what, no matter how advanced an aircraft is, we have not heard of one yet publicly, and I do not know of one myself from all of my research, that is able to actually notify a pilot if a manpad missile has a lock on them and is traveling towards them. Most RWR receivers and most incoming threat receivers on an aircraft are specifically designed to be able to pick up semi-active radar threats or active radar threats, meaning that there has to be an active radar lock of some type, either from the missile or a ground acquisition radar, for an aircraft to be able to start screaming at the pilot that a missile is incoming. Manpads do not give off that sort of a threat or that sort of a warning. These missiles work off of heat signatures. They pick up the heat signature that comes off of the exhaust, either at the front of the aircraft from its intakes or at the rear of the aircraft where it's the strongest at its exhaust of the turbojets, and then it locks onto that and flies straight towards it. Usually, no aircraft on the planet has any way to warn of an incoming missile of that type. There's really nothing that will let the aircraft know that that thing's coming in. Most manpad missiles have a little sensor. Some of them even have what would almost be described as a little eyeball in the front of the missile that locks onto that heat signature and starts flying towards it. So you generally kind of have to know somehow, by visually seeing the smoke plume from the ground that a manpad was fired, that one was coming at you, to even be able to try and deploy flares, which would be the defense against these, to try and stave it off of the course of going straight for the aircraft. But that once again requires visual identification of an incoming manpad, which, if you're flying at 15,000 feet in a straight line, not looking at the ground, you're probably not going to see it coming. That means that the manpad would easily be able to land a hit, and it would take the aircraft down. I also have to point out to y'all another interesting fact of a fairly similar war in Ukraine, that most Russian aviation losses from the war in Ukraine have been conducted almost primarily with manpads. Hardly any of them are caused by conventional air defense systems like the Mim-104 Patriot or Ukrainian aircraft themselves. It appears that practically every single loss that the Russian Federation has taken in air losses, something about 70% or more, are from Ukrainian manpads on the battlefield, once again leading us to believe that manpads would be the most significant threat that the United States Air Force is posing right now, or is posed by the Iranians, and that the Russians most likely facilitated in providing them new manpads to try and shoot down these aircraft. So with that, I hope that does address that well, at least in my opinion. And we actually have more breaking news coming out at this moment right now. So Matthew, what do we got?
Okay, so let's return back to another breaking story. Also, by the way, I do want to tell y'all that I am seeing reports that are generally unverified for the most part, but just to tell you what I'm seeing on my back channels personally that I'm currently monitoring, it looks like there are people claiming that there's still ongoing clashes between some type of U.S. forces, possibly special forces perhaps, and also the Iranian regime on the ground somewhere in southern Iran. That's the claim, but we're waiting to see exactly what's happening. We don't know exactly what's happening right this second. But one thing that we do know is happening is Iran had bombed Kuwait's power and water desalination plants and obviously crossed a big red line just an hour ago. So we've gotten our first videos apparently showing or allegedly showing strikes to some of their power facilities. I don't see the desalination plants in these videos, but I do see what appears to be possibly a power plant. Maybe so. But let's take a look at these videos, Enforcer, and see if we can confirm that or not.
All right, and so let's take a look at these clips, folks. These apparently are from inside of Kuwait. That is definitely a direct hit on the power plant.
So I don't know which power plant that is, sadly. I'm not very familiar with the power plants inside of Kuwait. Obviously, it's a small country, so it should be easy to spot them. There shouldn't be that many, but I can't tell y'all which one that is right off the bat. But apparently, the electricity ministry inside of Kuwait is also confirming that that was a hit on a power plant right there. So Iran has definitely crossed the line this evening. Now we have video proof showing that as well. So that's concerning.
So let's see here. 2 power generating units are out of service. Let me go and look at this really quickly because we actually have all of them and I have a list of them here. So let's go down here to the area of Al-Zor. And let's see if we can find this one down here. So this is what appears to be an energy and planning depot. There's a thermal power plant somewhere around this area, right down here. Oh, here it is. So this is the Al-Zor thermal power plant. This doesn't seem to line up with the visual. Well, wait a minute. This might line up with a visual profile. Maybe. But let's take a look at the couple of others that we have, because they only have so many. Wait a minute. Actually, that looks like those two smokestacks right there. Those two exhaust vents. Do you see that, Matthew?
Yeah, it kind of looks the same. I'm looking at the video right now trying to see. It's obviously dark in the video, so you really can't tell that much, but it generally has the same shape. But then again, I mean, it's kind of hard to tell. There appears to be some type of elevation or a building off to the left. I'll be honest with you, it's really hard to tell. I'm doing a lot of guesswork here. It's very dark in the video, and you just can't really see.
Now let's see here. We then have another one that's near Schweibe, which is somewhere up around here. So let's see if we can find Schweibe. And let's see here. I'm trying to see if I can zoom in and zoom out and try and see if I can find this thing exactly. So it looks like this would be the power plant here. This wouldn't really match up. It's a built-up urban area. Oh, well, not really a built-up urban area. Built-up industrial area, large amounts of towers and stacks. We don't see that in that video, so that one's most likely out for being a candidate. And then we have another power plant up here within this area. And I do not see one that would really stick out, and this is an urban area, so this really wouldn't line up. And then there's one more over here. This would be the Doha West Power Station office. This one would be a possible candidate, and let's take a look at what the surrounding area looks like here. So let's see, there's another power plant. That one actually seems to be lining up as well. So that might be one. That might be the one power plant, or it might be the one that we saw starting first off. And then the last power plant that they have is up here, and this is the Sabia thermal power plant. And let's take a look at the street view nearby if we can, and try and see what this visually looks like.
Oh, also, we have more breaking news, by the way.
And go ahead. What do we have?
So it looks like Iran, and we were also expecting this. I mentioned earlier that we're also possibly expecting more attacks. If Kuwait was hit and they hit the desalination plants and the power plants in Kuwait, then the other Gulf states were probably on the menu as well. It looks like Bahrain has just gotten hit. Apparently, oil storage has been struck inside of Bahrain. And also, it appears to be the Babco refinery is once again under attack, as we can see in some video footage that we're getting right now. And also, we have some video showing ballistic missiles impacting. So this is not a drone attack. Apparently, it's a combined missile and drone attack here on Bahrain. So some pretty large attacks being lobbed this evening, by the way. Also, I do want to mention earlier, just about 2 hours before we went on the air this evening, we also saw that the Kuwait Petroleum Corporation's headquarters had allegedly gotten hit by a drone as well, and it looked like the whole building was on fire, at least at the top floors of it. So that's a pretty big one as well. But Enforcer, I'm not sure how much of the video we can show there, because I see a huge watermark in the middle of it, but we can probably show like a clip or two showing the refinery and also the oil storage on fire.
It appears to be an Iranian watermark, and I'm pretty sure no one in Bahrain is going to be having an Iranian watermark. So I think this is just someone who's trying to like claim the video, but they don't actually own it. So let's show the first part of this clip right here. We see a direct impact on the refinery and also debris being flung off from the impact. And then we saw in the second clip here as well, the oil storage tanks that are also on fire in Bahrain with music accompaniment. And we see that right there. So that does appear to be showing us that there have been hits inside of Bahrain and infrastructure is being attacked throughout the area. We also have these clips as well. That's an incoming Iranian missile. And we also saw the smoke rising from the oil storage facilities as well inside of Bahrain. So this does confirm significant attacks have just been conducted minutes ago inside of Bahrain against critical oil infrastructure and refineries within the area. But I would have to tell you, Matthew, getting us back to our Kuwait coverage here, it does seem that that power plant was either this power plant, the Sabia thermal power plant, or it was likely the Al-Zor thermal power plant down here near Al-Kiran. I believe that's our two likely candidates for what may have been hit.
It could be possibly. Also, I see a lot of people asking this question, which obviously is running through everybody's head right now. Why is Iran crossing this line tonight? Because this is something they've generally held back from doing. The United States has also held back from it as well. So why did Iran decide to do this out of the blue? Because it's obviously going to cause a major retaliation, I'd imagine. So the reason why I think they're doing this, in my speculation, is that they know the 48-hour deadline is about to be met. The U.S. president came out today and said the Iranians have 48 hours to either reach a deal or reopen the Strait of Hormuz, or hell is going to let loose over the skies of Iran. So I think Iran might believe that it's not a bluff this time. They might think it's a real threat, and they might be trying to get ahead of it by going ahead and striking the Gulf states. So that's my speculation. But Enforcer, what say you?
I think that might be the case, or it might be that they're trying to increase pressure along with the Hormuz situation to try and see if they can leverage that to see that Middle Eastern states begin to change their position and then ask the United States to try and end the war some way conclusively before they start taking significant infrastructure damage, which might also be the approach that the Iranians are trying to take, similar to the one that we're threatening on them, to basically just cause a large amount of civilian suffering to the point it puts heavy pressure on the targeted government to try and get into negotiations and end the conflict sooner rather than later, due to the possibility that they may be concerned about the welfare of their citizens. So that might also be the reason why the Iranians have taken this approach right now. Either way, this is a clear violation, folks, of the Geneva Convention. And this also lets us generally kind of have a bit of a blank check as far as the U.S. is concerned to conduct reciprocal attacks on the behest of our allies or in response to attacks that were conducted on allied nations that were war crimes. These technically would be war crimes, the attacks on desalination plants and power plants, because just to make it clear, folks, you can always try and argue that a power plant is a military target, but more times than not, from what we can tell, that will never be found to be justifiable to hit a power plant as a military target. The war in Ukraine has proven by multiple UN resolutions that most every country on the planet did not look at the Russian Federation unilaterally conducting attacks on Ukrainian power plants with no due cause as part of war. They consider that to be a war crime, and literally every country, including the United States, voted to approve those resolutions, meaning that attacks on power plants in general in the modern day and age would not really be looked at by any country as just a normal day in the war. It is a flat-out war crime. And not only that, desalination plants are impossible to justify as war targets because they are necessary for the functioning and survival of the citizens of that country solely. So those are clearly war crimes to conduct attacks against. So I hope that does address that the best I can, at least in my opinion. And it now looks like a lot of people are wondering about a statement that was issued by the president today over the situation in the Strait of Hormuz. Just to give you all the recap here, over the past 8 days, we have heard the following. 8 days ago, the president of the United States issued a threat saying that in 10 days' time, if the Iranians didn't open the Strait of Hormuz, we were going to blow the hell out of everything inside of Iran, power plants and all, and generally just see that the country is blown back into the Stone Age. 2 days after that, the president then stated that the Strait of Hormuz isn't our problem, and it's Europe's problem, and we're going to do nothing to reopen the strait. The Europeans will have to do all the heavy lifting to reopen it because the Strait of Hormuz doesn't really affect us. Then about 2 days after that, we then heard a statement by the president of the United States saying that the Strait of Hormuz needs to be opened, but it's not really that big of a deal, and if we end the war and walk away, which would happen in about 3 weeks, then the Strait of Hormuz would open naturally because the Iranians would, just naturally do that for some reason, no real explanation. And then 2 days ago, we then heard that the President of the United States stated if only we had a couple of days, just a little bit more time to bomb the hell out of Iran, we could forcibly open the Strait of Hormuz through the force of arms. 2 days after that statement was made, we're now all the way back full circle at this point to the beginning. And now the president's saying, remember when I gave Iran 10 days to make a deal or open up the Hormuz Strait? Time is running out. 48 hours before all hell will rain down on them. And then added a religious statement and then put his name on it. So that is currently the statement by the President of the United States, apparently suggesting that the Iranians have 48 hours now to open up the Strait of Hormuz, or we're going to start bombing them. Or he might extend the deadline again, because that happened before. So with that, that's the current situation and threat by the president. So a lot of people are wondering whether or not this is going to be followed through on, or whether there's going to be another extension to this, or it'll just be forgotten tomorrow, and we'll then blame it on Zelensky or something. And so, Matthew, what is the breaking news at the moment? And then we'll be getting to what people are thinking about that. So what do we got for the breaking news, Matthew?
Okay, so this pertains to the weapons systems officer of the F-15 that's still on the loose right now inside of Iran. I've gotten it on good word from a U.S. representative that it's not confirmed that the F-15's weapons officer has been recovered. So I would take his word for it, certainly. So I would assume he's in the know. So I don't think they've been recovered yet. He is confirming that he's seen reports as well from people that he trusts claiming that the weapons system officer has been recovered. But right now, we do not have official confirmation that individual has been recovered. So I see a lot of people claiming that, and apparently there have been other channels and also sources trying to say that they've been recovered. But we've heard it from a pretty good source at this point that is not confirmed. But anyway, so jumping on into our poll, it says U.S. officials say Iran must make a deal in 48 hours or hell will be unleashed on Iran. So what are your thoughts? 60% said the U.S. will carry it out, while 26% said the U.S. is bluffing on this, and 7% said Iran will stall by talking. And I think this time, I think the U.S. might mean it. Now, I am going out on a limb with that because the last time the U.S. made a threat like this, they backed out of it. I think they might be serious this time. It's kind of coming down to decision hour. Something either has to be done, and they can't keep breaking these threats, or otherwise it means nothing at that point. So I'm with the 60%. I would speculate that the U.S. might carry it out. But Enforcer, what say you?
I would have to say that, in my opinion, I'd have to be honest with y'all, folks. I'm going to have to go with the 6% on this one. I'm unsure and undecided because I'll be honest with y'all, I have a feeling that when it comes around to the day that we're supposed to start bombing everything, we'll probably blame India for the whole thing or something, because that's how it's been for the past 5 weeks, is that nothing is really stuck at all, and one statement today means nothing the next. So I'd have to be entirely honest with y'all, I'd have to be with 6% because the president is so indecisive and unclear on what he wants to do and has no follow-through on most everything that he says that it's really hard to say whether anything's going to happen or not. I mean, I would lean towards the idea at this point we probably would conduct the attacks, but at the same time, folks, we have used the words of the president at face value many times on this channel for analysis and taken it face value for a year and 4 months now. And about 90% of that time, when we take stuff at face value and work with that and then make analysis on it, it ends up being wrong because he just changes his mind the next day and then goes with a totally different approach. So to be entirely honest with y'all, I wouldn't be able to tell y'all exactly what's going to be happening. We might do it, we might not. Who knows? We'll just have to wait and see when 2 days comes around what actually happens. So I hope that does address that the best I can, at least in my opinion. But with that, we are going to be moving on into the rest of the news that we have from around the region. And we were able to hear some significant developments, not only within the area of the search and rescue efforts inside of southwestern Iran, but inside of southwestern Iran at Bandar-e-Mashahar. Bandar-e-Mashahar is a larger port facility area within southwestern Tehran, and you can actually see it right here. And there is a significant amount of port facilities for loading coal, the loading of oil, and other sorts of resources that they have within this area. Not only that, they have a significant oil refinery and oil storage depot, which you can see there, and also 2 larger cities, which support the facilitation of the operations at the port. We do understand the United States apparently targeted and hit a refinery within this area, which we were able to see in these 2 clips that we have to show y'all on air right here. So here is the first clip. See the smoke rising. Little honk. And that's the end of that clip. Moving us on from that, we also were able to see another clip showing the heavy hits within this area as well. And this one was a little bit more conclusive in what exactly the damage looked like at this refinery. So here it is. And we can see smoke rising from multiple impacts over the larger area, which appears to have knocked this refinery out of operation from what we can tell.
That's some very clear footage of that, by the way. That's something. Wait, and where's this from again? Say it again.
This is somewhere around Bushehr, which is actually kind of close to the search and rescue area that's happening just a little bit north of this place.
Interesting. I thought for a second it might have been the Gulf state. I was seeing those Iranian flags. I was like, wait a minute. I was like, where is this at? But anyway, so also, by the way, I do want to take a second here to say something. I see people starting to quote an Instagram account that is representing to be a part of the U.S. Air Force. Just to make this disclaimer, there is a phony account out there that is posing as being affiliated with the U.S. Air Force. It's a phony account. And I just saw now that it looks like some other folks are debunking the whole thing and, proving it to be a fake account. So there's a lot of lies going on right now, like a lot of lies about the weapon system officer being recovered. It's possible that they might have got him back, but there is zero official confirmation that he has been recovered. So, I don't think we're going to be seeing that all night. People are going to be claiming that he's been recovered, but we just don't have confirmation, just to make that clear one more time.
And I also have to make that exceptionally clear, folks. I have to say this, folks. If you hear anyone in the chat making any claims that we haven't made on air about the weapon systems operator, I would most likely credit them as false, because we are working overtime right now on this channel day and night while the search and rescue effort is ongoing to try and keep the story as up to date as possible and as well researched as possible. And if we have not been able to see from an official channel, which we are watching with eagle eyes right now, to see that they've made an official statement that the guy has been recovered safely, everyone else who's making that claim, I hate to say it, folks, is really full of shit, because they're making claims that no official government agency that would be responsible for the pilot's safety and would be the one to know that the guy's been safely recovered has said anything about the guy being safely recovered yet. So I just want to make that exceptionally clear. If you see someone in the chat saying, "Oh, I have it on good authority that the guy has been recovered safely," I would take that with the hugest grain of salt. I would take that with a salt mine, because that is completely untrue at this moment, and we have no proof that that is ever going to be true at this very moment in time. We're still hearing that they're trying to find the guy. They haven't even gotten him out of the country yet. So how the hell is he safe and sound when U.S. helicopters are still flying over southwestern Iran trying to find the guy? That clearly shows that those claims are not true at the moment. But moving
Also, by the way, we have some more breaking news. So it looks like Camp Bushering, if I'm pronouncing that properly, inside of Kuwait, has apparently suffered multiple large fires on the site. It looks like it could have been hit possibly by some drones or maybe even a missile, perhaps. But right now, all we know is it looks like Camp Bushering in Kuwait is currently suffering some very large fires. That appears to be confirmed on NASA's firm satellite map as well. I just reposted that, by the way, so you can show the audience what we're seeing here. But it looks to be that Army camp, the U.S. Army camp, might have been struck.
And let's see here. This appears to be in Camp Bushering in Kuwait. And let's see if I can show this to you where this is exactly inside of Kuwait. So Camp Bushering. Let's see here. Camp Bushering. Is that near? Let's see. There's the Al Salim Air Base. Let's see here. Let me take a look at that again on Twitter really quickly. So it has an airstrip and a large. Okay, so airstrip, large perimeter. We're looking for an airstrip, and we're looking for a large perimeter. Sorry, folks, if this gets a little bit nauseating, I'll just start yelling when we find it. So you can look away in the meantime if this is a lot, because I'm having to try and zoom in on anything that looks close and see if we can find this thing and exactly where it is. It must be out in the boonies, I'm assuming, because I'm not finding this thing anywhere in the country. Oh, man, I'll just have to type it in, folks. Sorry about that. Let's see. All right. Oh my God. So it is actually out there. So it was kind of close to where I first originally thought I saw it, but I've just completely skipped right over it. But this appears to be the base that is on fire at the moment. There are larger fires that appear to be sweeping over the southern side of the base. This would be near to what we can see on air as DPW housing, largely a larger area of barracks, maintenance facilities for the Army aviation based out of this area, and also possibly other additional barracks as well, which we can see around this area. So that seems to be what may be on fire and may have been hit at this moment. We actually have more breaking news coming out right now. So what do we got?
Okay, so let me preface this as well. Let me just give a general disclaimer real quick. Anything that we're reporting right now, like in real time on the spot, take it with a grain of salt until we confirm it and we can say it with factual, evidence behind it, because we're getting this on the spot and we haven't had a chance to fact check anything. But this is generally what we do throughout the day. We get a whole bunch of information together and then we have to spend the whole day trying to fact check it and then we present it usually on air. But we're doing a little bit different though tonight because we're having to do it live. There are allegations allegations, and once again, take it with a grain of salt, that a U.S. Black Hawk might have gone down apparently within the last hour or so. I do not know if that's true, and once again, the source is a little sketchy. So they're showing a video which appears to show some aircraft going down to the ground. It appears to be on fire. It does look like it's been struck, but I can't really tell if it's a U.S. aircraft. Take this one with a grain of salt. I will tell you that the source is RT. So obviously the source is sketchy, to say the least. So I'm going to go ahead and repost this, Enforcer. We can't show the video because it has their watermark and stuff all over it. But you can show at least a clip, and you can try to take a look at it and see what you think from the very blurry clip of the video.
Well, what the hell is this? A Bigfoot sighting? Like, they can't get any sort of a good zoom on this? Hold up, let me take this off screen, folks, and take a better look at this. I would tell you all that that's so blurry that it's largely inconclusive. I mean, after the first about quarter of a second of the video, it becomes so blurry, it's like a Finding Bigfoot clip. And also on top of that, it's coming from Russia Today, so there's a pretty decent chance that that's some sort of in-game footage from Digital Combat Simulator, which is DCS World, than anything. So we're going to wait for someone more credible than the hacks at Russia Today to put something out, so that way we can try and figure out if that's true or not. Because it does appear, folks, that we were able to debunk the claim that an F-16 was shot down. That was actually false news, fake news that was being put out by the Iranians, and there was no F-16 that was shot down. So it appears that we might be having a Bigfoot sighting on our hands right now that Russia Today is working with. But then again, they like to do that almost every day. The war in Ukraine's a clear indicator. So with that, I hope that does address that the best we can at the moment. And with that in mind, folks, we're going to be getting back into our normal news coverage of our normal schedule for the night as we wait for more breaking news to come out at this moment. But moving us on down and into Kuwait, we did get significant news from Kuwait before we were able to hear of the attacks that were conducted just recently. There have been significant infrastructure attacks that have been conducted throughout Kuwait over the course of the day, and we also confirmed right before we went on air that the Ministry of Oil building inside of Kuwait City was directly hit by an Iranian drone and was on fire. We also were able to see additional footage as well showing the direct strikes on Kuwait City, which we could see right here. This appeared to be on an oil condenser or possibly a power plant. We also were able to see these additional clips as well. Moving us on out of that news, we also heard that apparently, according to a pro-Iranian militia called the Ashab al-Khaf, they have claimed responsibility for an attack on American targets in Kuwait. The group stated that the operation was carried out in retaliation for the recent U.S. strikes on the Shalmich border crossing. So we do understand that they are apparently taking credit for those attacks at the moment inside of Kuwait. Moving us on out of Kuwait and out of the southwestern area of Iran, we have also been able to hear some significant developments further on in the central area of the Persian Gulf that it appears that another bomb has landed on the Bushehr Nuclear Power Plant perimeter again. And we have been able to largely hear that the Iranians are claiming that it was apparently hit again by some sort of an airstrike. And generally, folks, while we don't really take the Iranians at face value on any of the reports, we have seen that the past two reports they made on these attacks were accurate, which means that we do have a fairly decent credibility rating at this point for reports that come out that the Bushehr Nuclear Power Plant was hit. So it does appear that we're going to be taking this one at face value, that it probably has been hit for a third time, but we'll still be waiting for official confirmation from the International Atomic Energy Agency, the IAEA, from the UN, which we've also used to corroborate the claims that the nuclear power plant has been hit each and every time. So it highly likely has been hit for a third time, not the reactor hull itself and not the turbine hull, but the, I guess you could say what would we call it? The power plant campus has been hit. That's the best thing that we can say at this point. That's probably the best way to describe it, but it hasn't caused any critical damage to operational systems and the operational abilities of this power plant from what we've heard so far, but still the third one to have hit. We also were able to hear that as of today, according to Reuters, Russia's state nuclear company, Rosatom, evacuated a further 198 of its staff from the Iranian Bushehr nuclear power plant. This means that the entire war, for 5 weeks, there has been an entire army of Russian nuclear scientists and construction workers that had been just sitting around Bushehr, and this also means, folks, that 2 of the prior airstrikes today got incredibly close to slamming right into what Russia would be considering strategically significant scientists of the nuclear variety that worked for Rosatom. Now, I gotta say, folks, that it was one incredibly concerning to see that we landed bombs, either us or Israel, in the perimeter of the Bushehr nuclear power plant. It's also quite concerning to hear that the Russians were there the entire time, meaning that if those bombs landed in an area where they were at that moment, they could have been killed, and that could have created a significant confrontation with the Russians while we are in the middle of fighting a war with Iran, which we generally will want to avoid, because no matter how many times people say, oh, well, the U.S. can take on everyone in the world, do we really want to try and force a war with the Russian Federation in the middle of a war with Iran, which we're actually kind of having a tough time with right now because we don't have any larger grand strategy at this point? I mean, you know, that's quite a questionable one right there, I'd have to say, without a doubt, and fairly concerning to hear, to say the least, especially considering that we're landing these inside the perimeter of a nuclear power plant regardless. We've also been able to hear that the Iranians are continuing to applaud themselves for shooting down a drone somewhere around the Bushehr region, but it appears that the wing structure is actually that of a Wing Long 2, thanks to Fabian Hinz, who pointed this out on Twitter today. It certainly is a wing of a Wing Long 2. So it does appear that some sort of a Gulf state nation is flying reconnaissance drones over the area at this point, and we've been able to confirm that fairly well. But outside of that, a lot of people are currently talking about the nuclear power plant that's been hit for a third time today. Not the reactor hull or the turbine, just the campus of the power plant. And a lot of people are voicing whether or not that's justified at this point. So, Matthew, what are people thinking about that? And what are you thinking about it as well?
Okay, so we have seen previously that there has been strikes on the location of the Bushehr nuclear power plant. It did not hit the reactor building itself, but it was literally just directly to the right of it on the location of the facility. So very risky strikes. Like, to say risky, that's understating it quite a bit. And apparently, Iran is claiming that another hit was conducted today in another U.S.-Israeli airstrike. And once again, we don't have visual confirmation of it. We got visual confirmation of the last strikes, but not this one today. So the bigger question is this a valid target for Western forces to be striking or attempting to strike in this war? 50% said yes, it is fair game, while 33% said no, it's not a valid target, and 9% said I'm 50-50 on this one. So it's a nuclear power plant, folks, and obviously you don't want to hit nuclear power plants with munitions. That's obviously common sense. You don't want to do that. Even in a war, you don't want to do that, because here's the problem. If they hit it, it's going to cause a radiological release that's similar to Chernobyl or perhaps even Fukushima. It's going to be like that. It's going to be very bad. The containment dome on the facility itself, it's generally built to certain standards to resist a strike like that, but, you know, if they sustain strikes on it and keep trying to hit it, it could cause a very bad radiological release, to say the least. And also, not only to mention, you know, that threat, but it also threatens the entire Persian Gulf. If they hit it and somehow there is a release, it's going to pretty much contaminate the Persian Gulf very badly. It's also going to probably put a huge contamination risk on Kuwait, Bahrain, Qatar, the UAE, Saudi Arabia, pretty much all the Gulf states. They're going to be in the line of fire for radiological contamination. So unless we're willing to do something like that, which obviously we are not in support of that, then it's not a valid target. I'm with the 34%. We've always been saying for ages that Russia has been trying to hit, like, for example, a power plant, a nuclear one, inside of Ukraine, and we've always said that would be an act of terrorism, obviously. And I say the same thing here. Nuclear power plants are not valid targets. But Enforcer, what say you?
I'd have to say that I would be well within the 35% as well, that this is absolutely a horrific idea to hit an active nuclear power plant, regardless of the circumstance. That is not really a great idea in general, just to be completely frank with y'all. It would, one, create a nuclear meltdown, without a doubt. Really, one hit would create a nuclear meltdown. Generally, nuclear reactor hulls aren't made to survive bombings because, you know, it's not expected on any given day. You know, they would be dropping a bomb, a 2,000-pounder on the top of the reactor hull or the turbine hull every single day. And if the turbine hull fails, the reactor could run out of control. If the reactor is hit, the turbine shuts down and then the reactor goes into a meltdown because now the reactor is a runaway reactor. And not only that, there's no way to control the reaction after that. So I would have to say that this would be a pretty horrendous idea. Not only that, it would irradiate all of the drinking water for our allies in the Middle East, And on top of that, it would be nuclear terrorism. Under no convention in the Geneva Convention does it say that it is acceptable to hit and destroy a nuclear power plant unless if it's being used only for military purposes. And there's no way in hell that there could be an argument that this thing is being used only for military purposes. The Russian Federation has tried to hit the Zaporizhzhia nuclear power plant in Ukraine and also sabotage it a myriad of times to try and start a nuclear fallout scenario in its own situation. And that has never been considered to be a good thing. Everyone in the world has been trying to get that nuclear power plant out of Russia's hands so they can't keep attempting something like that. And not only that, it has been deemed nuclear terrorism by multiple UN resolutions endlessly, meaning that this would be an analogous scenario, and that would also be nuclear terrorism, without a doubt. But we have major breaking news that is coming out at this moment. And Matthew, what do we got?
Okay, so right this very second, literally 30 seconds ago, we have seen our first possible confirmation, official confirmation, that the weapon systems officer of the F-15 might have been recovered. This is being reported by Al Jazeera, by the way, and Al Jazeera claims that a U.S. government official has told their organization that the second crew member from the downed F-15 has been recovered after what they call a heavy firefight, which seems to line up with the videos that we've been seeing coming out. So that is from Al Jazeera. And once again, we still haven't heard directly from U.S. officials, but it sounds to me that it's generally safe to say that this WSO has largely been probably recovered for the most part. And I would say we can pretty much mark that down, I would say, for the most part. But of course, the final confirmation would be from U.S. officials directly. But Enforcer, what say you?
And it does appear that we're seeing that right now Al Jazeera is apparently stating that a U.S. government official told them that the second crew member, the weapon systems operator, has been recovered after a heavy firefight. So we're assuming now that those guys up there on that hill, they got shined apparently by the U.S. combat search and rescue teams that were trying to grab the pilot. So they must have been quite close to the location. And at that point, we might have been able to assume that they greased those guys, grabbed the weapon systems operator, and then bounced out of the area. And that was when that footage may have been filmed. Because now that they're making the statement, this operation is most likely concluded, and they have returned the pilot successfully to an allied nation, and they're on allied soil, and the announcement appears to soon be made officially. But I once again want to say, folks, this is Al Jazeera, and they're saying that a U.S. government official told them this, but we haven't seen the U.S. Air Force, CENTCOM, COR, the Department of Defense, or the President make any statement saying that this weapon systems operator has been successfully recovered. So this is getting very close to official confirmation, but this is a second-hand source. This isn't a primary source, and we're still waiting for a primary source right now to be able to completely confirm that the weapon systems operator is safe. And we're hoping that we're able to get that confirmation here live on air tonight, because it sounds like we're getting some very promising preliminary developments at this point on the safety of that WSO. So hopefully we'll get that here very soon. But with that, we are going to be moving on from what appears to be a very promising lead, and we are going to be moving on into our rest of the news throughout the region. But before we get to that, folks, it has been an hour and 15 minutes of unending news coverage at this point right now. And we have been able to hear that at the moment, a lot of people have been watching this show. We've had a peak viewership of 28.3 thousand people, and 160,000 people have watched this stream in about an hour and 16 minutes. And I got to thank you all so much for watching this channel so far. We try our best to make sure to cover the news the best we possibly can, and to also be able to make sure to give the best analysis we can as well. Before we move on into the rest of our news inside the Middle East and around the rest of the world, where we have quite a lot of it, I do want to make sure that we take a brief moment to be able to answer 3 questions from the chat before we start moving on into the rest of the major news that we have, and to also see if we can hopefully get, before we move on, official confirmation from the U.S. government in some capacity that the WSO has been recovered successfully. And so, Matthew, what do we got?
All right, so jumping into our first 3 super chats while we wait on more breaking news to come out, we have a $50 support from none other than Marion Deemert. And thank you very much, Marion, for supporting our work and also helping to keep us on the air. And Marion said, LSA and happy Easter to all.
Hey, and thank you so much for that incredible support, and a big happy Easter to everybody out there. I hope y'all are going to be having a great one tomorrow. Matthew and me are probably going to be out there hitting them trails tomorrow, before the show runs, of course. We will be running a normal Sunday night show, as we always do, but I hope that everyone has an absolutely happy Easter tomorrow, because it is Easter weekend, and hopefully a lot of people are having a great time with their families and such. But a humongous thanks to you so much once again for the support and helping this channel to keep on running, Marion. And with that, we are on to the next one.
We also have a second one here. This one is from a Music Uploader who puts in a 50 as well. And thank you very much, Music Uploader, for also helping to keep our work running. He said LSA, and so thousands of truckers in Australia are stranded because they ran out of diesel at the truck stops. And I myself has lost 73.50 in 4 weeks. And open that dang straight and then do whatever you want. But you don't want to force us to pay for the failures.
And I would generally agree, Music Uploader. That's why we've been on the channel stating for 5 straight weeks that it would be imperative to open the Strait of Hormuz because it's going to cause undue stress onto the logistics systems of the United States and also to the average citizen in having to pay that massive difference in price, which we can already see is reflected quite heavily. The prices increased for gas by about 25%, and for diesel, I think it's an even higher number. It's in the 30 percentiles over the past 5 weeks since this war started. And I would certainly agree with you there. We have to see that the Strait of Hormuz is reopened. It is a strategic imperative for the continued operations of this nation, this republic, and the Western world that we open the strait with all due haste. So humongous thanks to you for the support and helping this channel to keep on running. And I hate to hear that you're being negatively affected by the conflict, much like many. We have been negatively affected by it a little bit, but not that much because we're not in the transportation industry, but we still have to pay the increased price of the pumps, and it is getting quite significant. I believe today I drove by a gas station and it looked like the price for regular unleaded gas was about $5 around here. So it's getting incredibly expensive, that we can be sure of. But a humongous thanks to you so much once again for that incredible support and helping this channel to keep on running. And with that, we are on to the final question of the segment, and then we're going to be moving on into the rest of the news. So what do we got?
All right, so our last one of the segment is going to go to Game Theory, and thank you very much, Game Theory, as well, for that $50 support. They said gas prices are reaching $7 in California, and I don't see this stopping. And where do you see the economy going, and are you doing anything to prepare? Also, by the way, first of all, thanks for the support. Number one, that is the first time that gas, I believe, has reached $7, I think, for unleaded, if I'm not mistaken. I saw a report about that earlier, but at the same time, though, I don't live in California, so I don't know if that's like if it actually the highest amount it's ever been, but $7, that's a lot for a gallon of gas. But it's California, though, so I'm not really sure. Like, the gas prices out there are always a little bit crazy. But me personally, where I see the economy going, it's not just the United States economy. I don't want to make it sound like just the U.S. is going to be hurting. I see a global recession possibly on the horizon. Unless Iran suddenly reopens the Strait of Hormuz or the U.S. suddenly pulls a rabbit out of the hat and is somehow able to reopen the Strait of Hormuz, I suspect that we're going to be going in for a global recession. And hopefully it's not that awful, hopefully, but my hopes aren't very high right now because it's a very dire situation and it's really nothing to be, underplayed. But Enforcer, what say you?
I'd have to say that it's a pretty rough situation, and a lot of people who are downplaying it and I have to make this wildly clear, folks, because this is just the truth of it. Anyone who's out there that's downplaying this right now is either so heavily politically biased that their analysis is completely pointless and it's more so fantasy and conjecture, or they are stating that it's not that big of a deal because they're completely ignorant of how global logistics and infrastructure works and they have no clue how bad this really is, and they're just talking out of their ass. Either way, they're talking out of their ass, but it just kind of takes a different angle. But outside of that, though, this is becoming a pretty concerning situation. From what we know, these are the highest domestic gas prices that have been seen since June of 2022, where there was a very temporary spike that happened. And to explain why that happened back in June 2022, the Ukraine war started, and as a knee-jerk reaction here in the West, we completely sanctioned Russian oil into oblivion almost immediately within the first opening months of the war, which significantly disrupted supply chains, especially in Europe. And so Europe had to come over here to us and start buying our oil, and then also start diverting their supply routes to the Middle East. It stabilized just a few months after that and largely returned back to its norms that it had seen before June of 2022, but that was about the highest that we had seen, and it was a very temporary spike that was caused by the logistical restructuring that was happening in Europe. But the thing with this one, though, is that there's a complete lack of fuel availability. It's not a logistical restructuring that has to happen due to foreign policy maneuvers, like, for example, sanctions on Russia. The oil is technically still available, and therefore the prices won't skyrocket that badly, and if they do, it truly would be a temporary spike. This is just, oil is physically unavailable. We cannot get Middle Eastern oil out of the Middle East right now because it has to go through Hormuz and nobody can get through. So because of that, this is going to start rising a lot more, especially if this continues the way it has been for some time, where the Strait of Hormuz isn't even really focused on and we're conducting no direct military actions to reopen it. We could see that this starts to turn easily into an economic recession and possibly even into an economic depression. So I would say that that's kind of the situation that we're in right now, unfortunately. And I would also have to say that doing anything to prepare, the only thing that I'm really doing to prepare, because sadly there's not a lot we can do here on our end, and a lot of folks out there like y'all really can't do a lot either. The only thing that I'm able to do is just drive less. If you're in a trucking business, that's impossible. It's a part of the business to drive. And if you have to commute to work every day, you have to drive as well, that minimum to get to work and back. But outside of that, we're just basically driving as little as we can to try and conserve costs on fuel consumption and keep it to where it was. So, we both have a budget. I believe Matthew's is a couple of hundred and mine's a couple of hundred for gas a month. And, we have to travel about half as much to be able to see that we are able to stretch that amount of funds budget-wise over that same period of time over a month. So I would have to say it's not really going to be looking all too well here in the near future if this continues the way it is. And I would have to tell you, folks, if you hear anyone say right now, because every single industry expert right now is panicking about this. There's not a single one of them that's saying this is fine. If you hear someone say the words panicking, or you're stupid, or you have no clue what you're talking about on this, they are probably intellectually how would we say, intellectually inept, and they really don't understand anything that they're talking about. I just want to make that wildly clear. If you hear anyone say that this is not an issue at this point, I would generally discredit most of anything they have to say after that, even if it isn't on this topic, because they don't understand that this isn't good for the economy, and this isn't good for the national imperative and also the benefit of the citizenry. They're not going to know a damn thing about nothing. So I hope that does address that the best I can, and a big thanks to you once again for support and help with this channel to keep on running. And I hope that I was able to address that the best we possibly can. And with that, it's time for us to move on and into the rest of the news that we have from inside of the region. And we have been able to hear, moving us on over towards the area of the Gulf of Oman, that according to some sources on Telegraph, they have stated that China has sent 4 ships, most likely carrying chemicals used to produce missiles and missile fuel to Iran. So we do understand that the Chinese are still trying to provide some form of direct military support to the Islamic Republic of Iran to see that they are able to continue their domestic production of missiles. We've also been able to hear that inside of the area of CENTCOM's area of responsibility, things are not going all too well on munitions consumption. According to what we know, only about 425 of the 2,300 JASSM-ER stealth missiles that we had at the start of this conflict are still around. Now, let me do some math on this really quickly, folks. Let me do something here. Because I didn't calculate the percentage earlier today, but let me do it right now. 425 divided by 2,300. So that means that right now we only have 18.5% of our existing JASSM-ER stockpiles that were available worldwide, available today, and that's just 5 weeks into the conflict. Currently, JASSM-ERs have been used like they're party favors and incredibly cheap and inexpendable. Well, largely expendable is the better way to say that. And we understand that we are starting to run out globally of these sorts of missiles, and it may take years to replace them off of current production schedules and also bids that have been placed to be able to produce these JASSM-ERs. These are some of our most advanced missiles, by the way. These things are considered low visibility or stealth. They're largely difficult to shoot down because it's hard to get a radar lock on them, which means that the guaranteed rate of success per firing is incredibly high because most enemies can't even shoot them down. But we are losing them at such a rate due to our consumption of them that we may not have these available for future conflicts that could be in the near future, like a war with the Russian Federation or a war with the People's Republic of China. So clearly a concerning development to be had there in strategic munitions consumption. But moving us on from that, it's now time for us to get on into the Islamic Republic of Iran. We were able to hear that there were airstrikes that did occur around the area of Shiraz once again, and it appears that there was some positive results, hopefully, that we were able to hear of out of that area. We also saw that there were some strikes that happened in Isfahan as well, although we were not able to see any video or picture evidence of this, and it appears that this was only according to eyewitness reports, meaning that we don't even really know what size of strikes these were and what they might have been trying to hit. We have also seen that apparently a JASSM either was shot down today, but the high likely truth of it is, folks, because it looks to be a largely intact one, it appears that this thing may have had some sort of an engine failure. You can see the engine right there, and it ended up just plopping down on the ground somewhere inside of Iran. So we do understand that at least one JASSM did fail, and that's about all we know on that situation at the moment. We actually have breaking news coming out at this moment right now. And Matthew, what do we got?
Okay, so the weapon system officer story has just taken a turn. It looks like Al Jazeera is now allegedly reporting that apparently the missing crew member has been confirmed rescued, but is not safe yet. Not really sure what that means. They say the rescue team must still successfully exfiltrate from Iran and get back to safety. So I would assume that we sent in U.S. Special Forces to go retrieve the WSO. So I would assume they went in by helicopter. So I'm not really sure what they mean by they need to exfiltrate from Iran. So possibly maybe the helicopters are on the ground or something, maybe, and they're trying to wait to take off. I'm not really sure how to interpret this, but the rescue team has gotten their hands on the WSO from the sounds of it, if you believe the report, but they're saying they haven't gotten to safety yet. So earlier I was saying you can kind of count this one in the bag, but at this point, I'm not so sure about that at this point. But Enforcer, how are you interpreting that?
It sounds to me like this might have been a report that was made prematurely by Al Jazeera, and they're now having to back off of it because their original report just a moment ago was that the second U.S. crew member was recovered after a heavy firefight, which made it sound like the whole thing was over. It now sounds like it's not over at all, and they might have been able to find the guy, but the helicopter hasn't even left the area. And to be entirely honest, a U.S. government official, unless if it's a certain type of official like the Secretary of Defense, the Secretary of State, someone at that high of a level, they might know the exact details of what's going on in real time. But most everyone else that's a U.S. government official isn't going to be privy to that sort of information to basically give a play-by-play at this point. So I would say that these reports, to be honest with you all, my analysis would be, my opinion is, these appear to be dubious at the moment, and I would take them with a grain of salt.
Yeah, and also I mean, I wouldn't say it's impossible because there's leakers in the government all the time. Sometimes it's intentional leaking and sometimes it's unintentional, or sometimes it's just nefarious, possibly. But what government official is leaking to a press outlet in, any press outlet, not just Al Jazeera, but any of them? I mean, what government official is taking that reckless operation? I mean, that's a reckless thing to do, to start, possibly jeopardizing a rescue operation while it's still in motion, especially if they haven't gotten the crew member out safely yet. That's a really reckless thing to do. So I'm beginning to really get on the fence about this, definitely speaking here. So I'm going to walk back what I said earlier. At this point, not confirmed.
And I would have to say, folks, that I was thinking when we covered the story a second ago, Andy, I was like, it seems like a lead, but I was like, like the fact that this hasn't been announced by anyone officially, it's like that makes me seem a little bit hesitant to say that this is, just full on the case. So it appears that at the moment, I would be entirely honest with you all, folks, I don't think that this is credible at all at this point, because the idea of getting a play-by-play on an ongoing operation like this from a U.S. government official that's basically providing this information almost in a live feed to Al Jazeera is wildly unlikely. I mean, the chances of that would be less than 1%. So I would say, folks, my honest opinion is we're going to be taking these reports with an absolute grain of salt. We're going to wait for an official report from CENTCOM or some other military-affiliated I guess you say headquarters or command, for them to come out and then say that the guy's been recovered safely. Until then, I would discredit most every report that's coming out. So with that, I hope that does address that development well. And moving on from that and on up into the area of the Islamic Republic of Iran, we were able to see that there was new footage that came out today of the strikes on the Karaj Bridge, which we were able to see here. Now, this is a little bit interesting because a lot of people have been talking about this today, and I saw some interesting comments on my video today that I made of people asking me, how in the world did I know that the bridge was closed? And these are great questions. And of course, here on the Enforcer channel, we are committed to transparency, and so I will help some people to know why the bridge was closed, and also why this really isn't even within the parameters of war crime or even a strategic target, or anything for that matter, because the bridge is not used. One, For a bridge to be a usable part of an infrastructure system, you must have a roadway that leads to that infrastructure node. Currently, we understand that by most recent satellite photography, there is no existing and paved roadwork that leads to the Karaj Bridge. As you can see here, that satellite photography that was taken around the time of 2026 is showing us that while the roadbed has largely been leveled, we are not seeing any pavement that has been put on top, meaning that for the larger part, we are not seeing that there is a usable road surface that would allow for normal amounts of traffic to be able to make it to the bridge site first off. Secondly, we also understand that the bridge was still under construction. This is easily visible by the fact that there are large cranes nearby, which are still present at the construction site, showing that the bridge was in an active state of construction at the time of its impact. It is usually considered to be, how would I say it, as far as a business is concerned, economically unwise to leave a usable construction crane at the site of a finished construction work. Secondly, we also understand that if there was a usable road that led to the bridge that would then lead it to be usable for road traffic, you would have to see an unobstructed driveway across the bridge for traffic to be able to use it. If we take a look at the pictures that came out of the bridge that was destroyed, and I'll quickly show you that here. One, we can see that the crane is still easily visible upon the bridge, and secondly, there's also the interesting fact that there are obstructions upon the driveway of the bridge, which makes this clearly an unused bridge. And let me explain why here really quickly. If we take a look at these pictures, we can see clear amounts of construction equipment that are clearly within the roadway. This would give us an idea that it is a construction site. Additionally, road vehicles cannot morph or largely teleport through objects that obfuscate the roadway. So clearly, it would be next to impossible for the IRGC, or civilians for that matter, to be able to use the bridge span due to the fact that it's physically obstructed by active construction sites. This also means, as well, that you wouldn't be able to drive across the bridge in simple English. And that also means, for another fact, you can't even get to the bridge because there's not an active roadway. And the IRGC isn't using top-end G-Wagons and Land Rovers to be able to get up to this thing, because if you're transporting missile components, you're generally going to go with a well-paved surface, because who the hell will want to fling around a multiple thousand-pound missile on the back of a truck bed over an active construction site, and not only that, dirt roads leading up to it. So I'd have to tell y'all, folks, from everything that we can tell, this bridge was closed, and clearly was not being used by the IRGC or the civilians for that matter, so it's not a war crime, and it also wasn't a strategically pertinent target. We just bombed the thing because it happened to be the largest bridge in the country. That's literally the only reason that we bombed the bridge. I mean, it doesn't serve a military purpose, it doesn't serve a civilian purpose. So, there you have it. So, apparently we just bombed that bridge because it was the biggest one in Iran, and it would make a nice headline that we bombed the biggest bridge in Iran. Does that sound strategically sound? Absolutely not. But anyways, moving us on out of Karaj, we also were able to hear of other developments within Tehran, as we were able to see significant strikes within the area. And let's take a look at that.
Not sure what this person was doing there, but
I don't know what they were doing there either. You know, that's a good question, honestly.
yeah, I definitely don't know what this person's doing.
They're just doing their thing, you know. But you can see the smoke rising from the impacts over there inside of Tehran. And we see them continuing to launch the bombardment in the city.
Looks like some pretty big hits right there. Were these the hits that was also being referenced? There was some video that was put out today that the U.S. president made on Truth Social, and he claimed that like a whole bunch of Iranian officials had gotten taken out in it. Is this related to that, or is this different?
This is apparently a separate strike that happened.
Okay, I was just wondering here. Do we have that footage or that post coming up, by the way? Because we need to cover that one if we can.
No, but if you can go get that on the likes tab, really quickly, I can pull it up. I just didn't want to cover it because it seemed like that, usual silliness, so I didn't put it up. But if you can find it and put it on the likes tab, I will make sure to go over it.
It's under the likes tab.
Got you, and we'll be covering that here in a moment as a part of the Tehran strikes. We also saw another clip today that also showed visible damage to civilian buildings inside of Tehran as well. But moving us on and into our clip here, or more so the statement that was made by the President of the United States, the President of the United States posted a video today of the strikes that happened at night inside of Tehran and stated the following as the caption. Many of Iran's military leaders who have led them poorly and unwisely are terminated along with much else with this massive strike in Tehran. This almost reads like a Mr. Beast video title, I'm not going to lie. And also, on top of that, folks, we've gotten no confirmation of anyone who died in the strike so far. I mean, if a lot of them were killed, we haven't heard in the public who they were and how many of them there were, for that matter. But we were able to see this video here that was published, claiming that many of Iran's military leaders were wiped out, but since then, and it's been about 6 hours at this point, we still haven't even gotten word of who these people even were or who they might have been. But anyways, here's the clip.
Also, he didn't really state the location. Well, he said Tehran, but he didn't really say what part of Tehran.
Yeah, like, it was just generally kind of the normal strikes we see every day at this point inside of Tehran. And while there might be some high priority people down there at the bottom of the strike, we still don't know who the hell these people even were, like if they were hit.
I wonder where he got this footage from, though, because I haven't seen this footage circulating anywhere else.
I wonder, honestly.
It doesn't appear to be filmed by any U.S. Air Force aircraft. It appears to be being filmed by some individual on the ground.
But that's the end of the clip. We didn't get any information about who these top guys were that got killed, how many of them were killed, or anything. I'll be honest with y'all, this kind of reads like the big gift thing that happened like last week where Iran was going to give us a humongous gift, and then what they did is that they just gave us more war for that week, so I guess that was the gift. I don't even know who these guys are because, usually folks, whenever, the U.S. military gets someone, we usually hear pretty quickly who it is. That's how it's been for the past 5 weeks, is that whenever a top Iranian official dies, we get told who it was. And we have no clue who these people were at all, and it's 6 hours later. So, moving us on out of that news, we have also been able to hear, moving us on out of Tehran and generally Iran in general for a moment, that the Israelis did come under more missile attacks today. There was a missile attack within northern Israel, but we didn't really have a lot of video evidence to show of those attacks today. Moving us on over and into the United States, we've also seen absolutely large numbers of airlifts ongoing on Flight Radar 24 over the northeastern part of the United States, heading to and fro from the Middle East, which we can see right here.
That's a pretty good bit of cargo aircraft heading out right there.
It is quite a large amount, and a lot of people are currently talking about what this is, because there's a lot of C-17s if y'all see that right there. It's a humongous number of them, as a matter of fact. So a lot of people are wondering, what's up with this? And Mandy, what are people thinking about it, and what are you thinking about it as well?
Okay, so what do you think about the massive cargo airlift that we've seen over the last 24 hours by the U.S. Air Force? It appears to be heading to Europe and then jumping to the Middle East. So what is being planned? 65% said it's probably ground operation preparations, while 26% said it's replenishment and normal ops, and 1% said it seems unrelated to Iran. So I would say I'm actually with the 26%. I think this is a replenishment. I think it is normal operations. It just happens to be that they're doing it in one fell swoop. But we're using a lot of munitions right now in the Middle East, and a lot of assets are also obviously needing replenishment, like for maintenance, fuel, etc., things like that. So I would suspect it's probably just replenishing what we're using for the most part. I think we're using munitions at such a high rate that we need the current cargo airlift to be able to simply get more munitions and bombs into the theater. But Enforcer, what say you?
I would say that it could be either. Like usually that would be replenishment ops. There's been a huge amount of flights that have been just conducting replenishments, and mixed in amongst them, there might be parts of the brigade combat team of the 82nd Airborne Division that was supposed to be sent over, as we were able to hear from the strippers at the strip club nearby to Fort Bragg. They were able to hear that from the soldiers on the ground. So, thanks to them, we might be able to get an idea that they might be on some of those flights. But there's also a great deal of replenishment flights that are also probably being conducted as well simultaneously, meaning that they're kind of mixed in amongst the traffic. So I'd actually have to go with the 65% and the 26% simultaneously. It's probably a mix of both.
Yeah, it could be a mix of both.
And so with that, folks, we are going to be moving on and into the rest of our news that is not in the Middle East. For one, today, we have been able to hear, folks, that the People's Republic of China is apparently dumping treasury bonds like no tomorrow at the moment. And from what we understand, Chinese holdings of U.S. treasuries has plunged to the lowest level since the global financial crisis has begun. And so we are seeing, of course, this shows over about the past few decades, but we are seeing that they are still dumping treasury bonds at this point right now, and they've dropped to the lowest numbers that we've seen largely since 2008. Moving us out of that, we have also been able to hear inside of the United States of America a couple of interesting developments. We were able to hear that the President of the United States has announced today that we've won the war and that it's largely over. We've also been able to hear that apparently the U.S. government issued a letter today apparently stating the following. Dear Evan, this was apparently sent to someone who is working at Planet. Due to the conflict in the Middle East, actually, this was apparently someone who asked Planet for some satellite photography, and then this was a response by Planet and the Planet team to this person named Evan. Due to the conflict in the Middle East, the U.S. government has requested all satellite imagery providers voluntarily implement an indefinite withhold of imagery in the designated area of interest, AOI. Effective retroactively from March 9, 2026, Planet is moving to a managed access model, extending the publication delay for all new imagery within the designated AOI, and is releasing imagery on a case-by-case basis and for urgent, mission-critical requirements or in the public interest. For the media, this model is in line with the media policies of other remote sensing companies. We expect this policy to last through to the end of the conflict. Access to imagery for the rest of the world is unaffected. These are extraordinary circumstances, and we are doing all we can to balance the needs of all our stakeholders. We will continue to monitor the situation and make adjustments as possible to minimize the impact on data availability to our customers. For questions regarding specific projects or to request a policy exception, please contact your customer success manager. We appreciate your continued partnership as we work to ensure our data remains available for responsible use. Best regards, the Planet team. So apparently the U.S. government has sent out a letter to all of the satellite imagery companies, basically telling them, at this point, from what we can tell, to not really allow any satellite imagery to come out of the Middle East. And this largely appears to be an email that seems to be corroborating that alleged information that we are getting today. If this is true, I'd have to say that that is a fairly interesting sort of an alleged claim that we're getting at the moment right now. And if we were to take that as true, apparently the U.S. government is not wanting anyone to get satellite photography out of the Middle East. And I have to say, folks, that's a little interesting because if the claims are correct that we have won the war, what's wrong with us getting satellite photography to prove that we've won the war truly? You know what I mean, folks? I mean, if we've won it, then there really wouldn't be a security risk to satellite photography, because all it would show is a whole bunch of craters inside of Iran of all of the IRGC officials, the Iranian government officials, and the Iranian military that we've obliterated, and it clearly wouldn't show anything that would make the United States or our allies look like they're kind of taking a little bit of a beating right now, and that it's more so kind of a bit up in the air, strategically concerned, at least on that end. I have to say that that is a little bit of an interesting fact here, folks, because for a lot of people to claim that the U.S. is about as transparent as it can be, satellite photography really wouldn't do anything to violate operational security for anyone, because we already know where all of the U.S. military forces are operating inside of the region. We've seen HIMARS fire from Bahrain, Kuwait, and Qatar, confirming that U.S. Army or U.S. Marine Corps ground rocket artillery is operating within those areas. We've already seen videos from multiple U.S. military installations in Erbil, Kuwait, and elsewhere showing U.S. troops within those bases and actively manning them. We've seen satellite footage before the war showing us the U.S. force buildups in all of these air bases throughout the region. So continued satellite photography that's released to the U.S. public would do nothing but corroborate highlight the information that we already knew before the war. If anything, it might show hits that we have not been told about, that the U.S. government hasn't let the public know of here in the United States, that may have been landed by Iran against us or on our allies. At worst, what it would show is us obliterating the Iranians if the statement is true by the president today that we've already won the war. But a lot of people are currently talking about this at the moment right now and are putting in their thoughts and comments. Matthew, what are people thinking about this right now, and what are you thinking about it as well?
And also, by the way, just to clarify this real quick, that letter that we were showing earlier, it's claimed to be that that's a legitimate letter. But of course, take it for what it is. It's being posted on Twitter. So I just want to make that clear. It's an allegation, basically. Got to say that for legal reasons, because obviously it's mentioning a specific company, and we don't want to get into, legally gray areas. So just make it clear, that is what's being shown and claimed on Twitter. But we are seeing that allegedly reports are saying that U.S. officials have sent out letters to satellite companies in general to restrict Mideast coverage and the release of this satellite data. So what are your thoughts? 51% said the U.S. is hiding the reality of the war. 40% said the U.S. is merely protecting operational security. And 4% said I'm 50-50 on the claim. And I would say that if it was about OPSEC, it's already covered. The U.S. had already sent out notices to these companies, about a month or two ago, saying that they would like these companies to put a 2-week delay on this information being released to the public. Now it appears to be they're going to be withholding it indefinitely, and also determining on a case-by-case basis what should be withheld and what shouldn't be withheld. So that's a pretty big difference. I'll be honest, I hate to say this, it seems like the U.S. is trying to basically hide information from the public for the most part, not necessarily because the U.S. is taking massive losses. We did see that yesterday, and it was widely reported, and it wasn't really massive losses, but it was some aircraft losses yesterday. But I think the U.S. is trying to basically put the blanket over the situation for the most part. I can kind of understand that on one respect, because obviously no country wants to show its losses. But then again, that's kind of what Russia does as well. They try to hide things from the public. The public has a right to know what's going on. If it's going badly, then we should know it's going badly. If it's going good, we should know that as well. So, it seems like a little bit of this stuff, just sadly. But Enforcer, what say you?
I would have to say, folks, that I see a lot of people talking about operational security, and the thing about operational security, folks, is that operational security generally pertains to things that would physically be seeable or knowable due to word of mouth that are either going to be happening in the future or are going to be happening in the present right now. Things that have already transpired and are now in the past, especially by several days or 2 weeks, generally wouldn't be considered to be operational security sensitive, because if, for example, if a soldier is standing on this hill right here 2 weeks ago, chances are wildly high he's not standing there today. And that's how operational security works. We don't want to tell anyone that that soldier's going up there 2 weeks from now. We don't want to tell them that that soldier is up there today. But he was up there 2 weeks ago, and he's not there now. It's totally fine to tell people there was a U.S. soldier right here on this hill 2 weeks ago. That's how operational security works. And with satellite photography, like Matthew was saying, the U.S. government has already requested that satellite photography be held when requested for 2 weeks and then published to whoever requested it for them to publish it to the public, wherever they would. That is securing operational security by far, but it also allows for a significant amount of transparency, because satellite photography could be requested to see the strikes that we've conducted inside of Iran and the kind of damage that we've conducted there, and it also could be used to see the kind of damage that Iran has conducted on our allies and our forces inside of the region. Of course, 2 weeks after it happened, which is once again not violating any operational security. With that now being an alleged claim that we've seen from this email that might or might not be accurate, it's now giving us an understanding that the U.S. doesn't want us to see any satellite photography of anything at all, either in Iran or on our allied nations and our allied forces. Which leads me to believe that they are trying to hide information so that way they can largely say whatever they want, and the only source of information that we have to work off of is their claims. So if they say that we just did this humongous strike inside of Iran and, we were able to obliterate everything everywhere, we really don't have any way satellite photography wise to see if that's true. And if they say that no one's been hit in the Middle East, we have no way to confirm that that's true either. But it actually appears that we have breaking news coming out at this moment about the weapons systems operator. And Matthew, what do we got?
Okay, so thank God we can officially report that the weapons system officer is recovered and safely back in safe hands as of this moment. It's been confirmed by U.S. sources this time. So it does appear that we can say with decent certainty at this point that the weapons systems officer has safely been recovered and Iran was not able to capture them. And also, despite all the, civilians going out there like lunatics, trying to go find the guy to get some money, they weren't able to get him either. So there was obviously a massive firefight to get this individual back, and we're going to probably be seeing videos of that coming out. Now, the part we do not know, not to put a damper on this, but the part we don't know is if there was any casualties out of this highly risky rescue operation. We don't know that yet, but the really good news is that our guy is back, or possibly airman, airwoman, whoever it is. We're not really sure of the gender of the individual, but they are back according to reports. So that is very, very good news to say the least. But Enforcer, what say you?
I would have to say that this is absolutely tremendous news because we have been able to recover the second pilot safely, the weapons systems operator, out of the Islamic Republic of Iran. And that is incredibly good news, folks, because that luckily means that this guy will not be captured by the IRGC. He will not be under the threat of execution or torture. And we have been able to get all of our personnel out of the region safely and not see them at the peril of being captured by the Iranians. So this is incredibly good news. Actually, a pretty a silver lining moment of the day out of everything is to hear that we were able to get both of the pilots out successfully. So a great thing to see, and I gotta say, a wonderful thing to know that the guy is alive and well, hopefully, and has been able to get out. And hopefully we'll be getting some additional information on that, and also the aftermath of the actions that were conducted to rescue the pilot here soon. But what do we got, Matthew?
Also get this, by the way. Apparently, this rescue operation started on Friday, actually. So here's what I'm seeing right now. They say special forces were deployed on the ground in Iran on Friday, which was yesterday, by the way, and then again on today as part of the search and rescue mission. And now all of them are out of Iran. So it doesn't appear to be any deaths out of this operation. If there was anything, it was a casualty as in an injury, if anything, it sounds like. But once again, we're waiting on details about that. But it sounds like they went in yesterday and then they came back today and then they finished the job as of today. So also, by the way, extremely brave PJs going in there to go get those guys out. They're very highly trained, to say the least. And also they know what they're doing, obviously, because they just went through and probably went through a massive firefight to get that person out. And not only did they pull the mission off, but it sounds like most people came back safely. Probably all of them came back safely from the sounds of it. So very big news.
And very big news indeed, and a great thing to hear, and it's wonderful to know that all of those combat search and rescue team operators were able to get out of there safely and also extract both of the pilots over the course of the past 3 days for the larger part. They got the first pilot within the first few hours, and they got the second pilot, which is the weapons systems operator, here just literally minutes ago, as we have been able to confirm. So with that, I hope that does address that incredibly well. Amazingly good news to hear out of the Islamic Republic of Iran. And it is time for us now to move on and back into our normal news coverage on the heels of that amazing report right there. We have been able to hear that the cost of gas and fuels within the United States is rising rapidly at this moment, and from what we understand, according to the Kobisi report, American drivers have paid an additional $8.4 billion in fuel costs since the beginning of the war in Iran on the 28th of February. In other words, Americans have spent an additional $240 million per day on fuel costs since the war began. The average cost of gas in the United States is now up to $4.10 per gallon, which is the highest it's been since June of 2022, 4 years ago. This puts the mean cost of gas now up $1.30 per gallon since January, and energy costs are rapidly rising, which is an unfortunate thing to hear. Moving us on out of that news, however, and on into Europe, we have also been able to hear, shifting us entirely out of the Middle East and on into the war in Ukraine and the greater situation in Europe, that the Federal Republic of Germany has made a significant announcement today by effecting a new law and a new requirement. For all male citizens between the ages of 17 and 45, they now must request a permit of travel by the Federal Republic of Germany's government to be able to travel outside of Germany for any period longer than 3 months. We believe that this also applies to the entirety of the European Union as well, which generally has a freedom of travel, meaning that you can travel from one country to the next in the European Union without having to stop at customs or border checkpoints to be able to move from country to country. This appears to be showing us case that the Federal Republic of Germany is starting to prepare even further for the war that may be coming with the Russian Federation, and is trying to make sure that the largest number of able-bodied males will be available inside of the country once a war begins. So this is giving us a fairly significant idea that war preparations are being undertaken seriously inside of Germany, and they're already trying to ensure that they have at least as many men available inside of Germany once the war begins for conscription. Moving us on out of that significant development, we have also been able to hear that down in Romania, interestingly enough, a picture was taken today inside of the area of the Bucharest Henry Coanda International Airport, showing us a significant amount of KC-135s that have apparently been operating out of Romania in support of U.S. military operations. To put this out there for all of y'all, Romania is a NATO country, meaning that the United States is using NATO territory to be able to support and conduct its operations against the Islamic Republic of Iran. That is a little bit interesting, folks, because for certain people to say that the U.S. has no purpose of NATO, it really does seem like we find those air bases within NATO territory to be incredibly useful for our military operations against Iran. You know, just a little food for thought there. If we didn't have these air bases, how would the operations against Iran be going right now? Anyways, moving us on from that, we have been able to hear that the Ukrainian Armed Forces also conducted a major drone attack against the Russian Federation over the course of this day, with around 250 drones entering Russian airspace and making their way towards their targets. We're about to be getting into the news on what they hit and what we were able to confirm the damage of here in a moment, but I see that a lot of people are currently going wild with the news that just came out of Germany today, that apparently all men between the ages of 17 and 45 have to get permission to leave the country for a period longer than 3 months. And a lot of people are putting in their thoughts on what that means right now. And Matthew, what are people thinking about that? And what are you thinking about that as well?
Okay, so it's a pretty wild story, actually, that Germany is now requiring all men ages 17 to 45 years old to get permission to leave the country for more than 3 months. That's a pretty big restriction that they're putting on the men of that age bracket. So what are your thoughts? 68% said Germany is preparing for a war with Russia, while 15% said this is really nothing serious, it's simply a precaution, and 11% said Germany is simply being paranoid and there's no reason for it, pretty much. So I would say that there's probably two different things here. Number one, Russia is still being very vicious in Ukraine. That's number one. There's still threats of the Baltics getting invaded, and now NATO is also kind of a little bit unstable at this point. So between all those things, I think that probably inspired this decision that was made on this. So that is a bit interesting. Also, it's a pretty wide age bracket, by the way. That's a very large group of people right there that's being restricted for the most part. So I don't think there was an official explanation issued for this. I don't think there was. It was simply a law that was passed, and that was simply the end of it for the most part. So I'm with the 67%. I think Germany might be preparing for a war with Russia, and also considering the contingency factor that NATO might not come to the rescue, or at least the United States wouldn't. But Enforcer, what say you?
I'd have to say that I believe that the Germans are certainly preparing for a war with Russia at this point. We've already seen significant efforts to begin remilitarization within Europe over the past 4 years of the war, and it does appear that multiple countries, especially Germany now, are making all available measures to try and even keep every bit of manpower available in Germany once a war starts. So I would have to say that they're certainly believing at this point, according to their intelligence, that a war with Russia is becoming a lot more likely now than it's ever been. That may be due to the weakening of NATO by U.S. actions that have been negatively affecting the NATO alliance, that is leading to the deterrence maybe being weakened. It is also definitely likely due to the economic collapse that's still ongoing within the Russian Federation due to their destitute economic condition. And not only that, it's also probably likely because the war in Ukraine is going on forever at this point, and it doesn't look like the Russians have any chance in hell of actually winning this thing, even at the minimal war goal of taking the entirety of the Donbass. It looks like they won't even be able to do that now. So for those reasons, I would have to say it's decently certain that the Germans have gotten some intelligence or have an indication that war is becoming a lot more likely in Europe at this point. But moving us on out of that news in Germany, we are going to be moving on into the Russian Federation, as we were able to see that that drone attack did produce some positive results today. In Nizhny Novgorod, and specifically in the town of Kosovo, we were able to see the oil refinery in this area. It was cooking. Blah!
Oh, dang. Looks like they fired it up on the grill. This is flame broil.
Man, they call that thing charbroil. They actually say, Matthew, that in Russia, whenever anyone hears about an oil-burning stove, they actually have a little panic because they think of the oil refineries in the distance blowing up and them all losing their jobs.
You got to be scared about that kind of stuff.
We also got to see this clip. Oh, hold up, folks. Hold up, folks. Oh, hold up. Come on.
What's happened?
For some reason, the browser froze when I tried to put up that video. That was really weird. So I'm going to keep it small, folks, because for some reason it didn't like going full screen on Twitter. But we can see here the explosion in the distance. It looks like it might have hit a substation within the area. And that's the end of that clip. We also were able to see the blast video, the first one that we saw right there, showing the refinery on fire. Moving us on out of that and out of Kostovo, we also were able to hear that further on down, there was another video of a drone making their way deep on into Russia. Let's watch this clip, folks. Let's watch and witness. Listen and learn. Is that air defense
What
fire?
is it?
Oh,
What's happening?
a little bit of air defense fire over there. Look at that. Some tracers. Do you hear that? I think I'm starting to hear a drone.
Пиздец, что творится на небе.
Okay.
Sounds like it's coming closer. It's coming in.
Роем летят.
Oh, I hear the sound of a lawnmower now. I guess the lawn crews are out at work early. And there they go. Oh, a little tracer fire there.
А эти
Pleasant.
ребята стараются отстреляться.
Okay, this lady, whenever she ends her sentences, that sounds a little bit sus, I'm not gonna lie.
Это сегодня у нас 4 апреля, ночь.
Oh, and look at that, a little gush gun out there at work. Jeez.
That really is something right here.
That really is something.
Бля, обложили со всех сторон. Ребят, с 4 сторон бьют.
What the hell is that?
I'm not really sure.
It sounds almost like a solid rocket booster out there in the distance, but can't really tell for certain.
Is there anything that happens in this video at any point?
Oh no, this is just letting you see the drones flying and the chaos that kind of ensued out there in the horizon. Do you expect something to happen in every clip, Matthew? Like something blowing up or something like that? Sometimes you just want to show how bad Russian air defense is. And that showed it well, over 2 minutes and 40 seconds as a matter of fact. But moving us on down and into something a little bit more exciting, we saw over Odessa today, the old Yak-52 went up with its machine gun and took down a couple of Shaheds. And we were able to see one of those on film. There's the Yak, there's the drone. Oh, and in a second here, you're about to hear the machine gun.
Самолетик летит. О, пошло.
Он его догнать не может. А, его сбили, он падает.
Да,
There it
And-
он
goes.
падает. Сбили.
Ooh!
Oh, man.
That is crazy that that little Yak can do that work. I gotta tell y'all, folks, that is nuts right there. Truly incredible work. Also up in the Sumy region, we also saw another drone getting shot down today by a Ukrainian Mi-8. Take a look at this clip.
Сбили.
You can already see that they shot it down at the beginning of the clip, and it's already making its plunge to the earth below.
Сбили, он упада.
Like Icarus, it flew too close to the sun, and now shall pay dearly. There we go.
Взорвался.
It exploded,
Ой-ой-ой-ой.
bleh. Beautiful, bleh. Oh. Oh, here's another clip of them shooting it down.
Давайте вже його гасіть.
Any second now.
Що, підбили чи ні?
Oh? Oh, they put a burst in on it? And it's going
Yeah.
down instantly.
Є, пішов.
Well, that's the end of that clip right there, but great to see. Moving us on from that and on up into the Sumy area, we also are seeing them hitting them pretty hard up there in the Sumy region, the little area of Sumy that the Russians are in right now. And oh, look, they hit an ATV with these cheap Chinese nickel rims. I gotta say, that's really an addition. We also were able to see them here hitting a supply truck, a UAZ, a year-old 4320. Oh, and a Akhmat armored car. Oh, and a couple of Russians. And another one. Oh, Kasapablia. Oh, yeah, what's this right here? A little gas? And a couple of more Russians? And an occupied position? And an outpost. Oh, in a basement. Where many of our disparagers live. We also were able to see this building right here. That was probably Dugan's summer home. We also saw this basement, and this barn, and this house that's now a pile of rubble. I think the Ukrainians, folks, have a promising future in demolition. And we can also see explosions here, and silence over there. And another hit on a Russian-occupied position. And another one. Look at that. The Ukrainian border guards have been really holding the area on the Sumy front, by the way, to give you all a little bit of a breakdown. The Russians haven't been able to advance out of this tiny little pocket of a handful of villages that they hold in Sumy, and most of these strikes in the clips y'all are watching right here are actually coming from that small Russian-held pocket in the Sumy Oblast, with the Ukrainians largely hammering them day and night in that area, leading to significantly high casualties over an incredibly small front. We also were able to see that further on down and in our location unknowns, we also had some additional clips as well, and some unfortunate news about the greater situation in Ukraine. According to information that came out today, according to President Volodymyr Zelensky, the Ukrainian intelligence has been able to learn that the Russian Federation may be attempting to target water infrastructure throughout the state of Ukraine. And we were able to see that, according to a direct quote from Zelensky, all this must be worked out by the armed forces of Ukraine together with local authorities, and it is already being done. We're talking about critical infrastructure, bridges, dams, hydroelectric plants, as well as pumping stations and drinking water supply systems. Damage to such facilities could disrupt hospitals, transport, and essential services, and Ukrainians are being urged to stock up on water as much as they can. With that in mind, the Ukrainians were able to inflict a significant amount of losses on the Russian Federation today over the past 24 hours. And according to Miss Disa, keeper of the records, she stated that 85 artillery systems is tied as the 7th highest daily loss and the highest per day loss since the 4th of June of 2025. And 2,387 drones shot down is the 4th highest daily loss of the war. Over the course of the past 24 hours, we were able to see that 1,110 Russian soldiers were wounded and killed, along with 4 APCs, 199 supply trucks, 2 main battle tanks, 85 artillery pieces, 2,387 drones, 3 MLRSs, and 26 cruise missiles. All in all, it was a pretty good day, all things considered, and it does appear the Ukrainians are still largely hauling off on the Russians on a 24/7 basis. Moving us on through our front lines. We didn't get a humongous amount of footage from the front today, but I do have to also show y'all another long-range drone attack that was conducted today by none other than Magyar's birds. They actually destroyed an S-400 radar system near to Feodosia, knocking out an entire S-400 unit in the process. Let's take a look. Oh, there it is!
Oh, look, a fanciful radar system. It would be a shame if it got hit.
Man, it would be an absolute shame if it got hit.
Mm.
Oh, it did. Look at that. It's smoking now. Like, it's smoking out there. And there it is in the flesh.
And it's gone.
You know, Matthew, I noticed something on this truck right here. Why the hell did they build the cab windows like it was those on a ship where it's, like, tilted inwards?
I don't really know. You know how the Russians, they like to design stuff that's very simplistic. They like it to be as unaerodynamic as possible. Not that this thing needs a whole bunch of speed or anything, but, you know, kind of odd.
Man, the driver in that thing, he'd be going over the bumps in the road going, "Yar, there be rough seas out here, sound the horn. We're coming in the port." It's like, man, I don't know what they would need a windshield like that for. Because if y'all don't know, folks, this is actually used commonly in the maritime world, angling the windshields inwards at the bottom. So that way the glare from the sun isn't as bad through the windshield. I have never seen this done before on a road traveling vehicle. Norfolk Southern did this on a couple of their SD40 rebuilds, and they're literally the only people in the railroad world globally that did that. And the Russians are the first people I've ever seen do this on a ground vehicle. It looks hideous on every single vehicle that is not a ship, by the way. But we can see that they did knock it out. And apparently we have more breaking news coming out? No way. I call cap.
So we have breaking news. We have a very lengthy post from the United States president, and here's what it says right here. So pull this thing up on the screen. It says, from President Trump. We got him. My fellow Americans, over the past several hours, the United States military pulled off one of the most daring search and rescue operations in U.S. history for one of our incredible crew member officers, who also happens to be a highly respected colonel, and who I am thrilled to let you know is now safe and sound. And his brave warrior was behind enemy lines in the treacherous mountains of Iran, being hunted down by the enemy, who were getting closer and closer by the hour, but was never truly alone because his commander-in-chief, Secretary of War, Chairman of the Joint Chiefs of Staff, and fellow warfighters were monitoring his location 24 hours a day and diligently planning his rescue. At the president's direction, the U.S. military sent dozens of aircraft armed with the most lethal weapons in the world to retrieve him. He sustained injuries, but he will be just fine. The miraculous search and rescue operation comes in addition to a successful rescue of another brave pilot yesterday, which we did not confirm because we did not want to jeopardize our second rescue operation. And this is the first time in military memory that two U.S. pilots have been rescued separately deep in enemy territory. We will never leave an American warfighter behind. And the fact that we were able to pull off both of these operations without a single American killed or even wounded proves once again that we have achieved overwhelming air dominance and superiority over the skies. Also, that we've achieved that as well. And that this is a moment that all Americans and everyone else should be proud of and united around. And we truly have the best, most professional and lethal military in the history of the world. And God bless America.
And a very interesting statement, I have to say. We're certainly a moment of celebration here that the guy was able to make it out successfully and be saved by the air search crews, or the combat search and rescue teams that were able to successfully recover him just minutes ago. So, of course, a great thing to hear and a great thing to see that we were able to see that the U.S. Armed Forces were able to save this pilot from an unfortunate capture if he was found by the Iranians. So, luckily, we will not have to talk about a captured U.S. pilot at any point further from here, hopefully.
Now, I will say, there's no sugarcoating this whatsoever. It was a very dangerous operation, very risky, and the fact that this was pulled off is a miracle, and also it's a testament to really good training and bravery of our soldiers, to say the least. So that's amazing to see, and also I'm very glad to see that they are back. But it was not all perfect, obviously, because it was a very risky operation. We did get some more information, and this is coming from Phytex News. They say in a final twist, after the weapons officer was rescued, two transport planes that would carry the commandos and the airmen to safety got stuck at a remote base in Iran. The commanders decided to fly in 3 new planes to extract all the U.S. military personnel and the airmen, and they blew up the 2 disabled planes rather than have them fall into Iranian hands. So, now I'm not criticizing, by the way. This is a very risky and complex operation, so, things like this are bound to happen. But there was a very strenuous moment, apparently, during this whole thing for the sounds of it. So thankfully, all that really matters is that we brought the people back and everybody got back safely. That's all that really matters. Who cares about the aircraft, getting blown up? That's really irrelevant at this point. What's really important is everybody got back. So certainly a very good operation.
And I'd have to say, a really impressive one at that, I would have to say, and it's a great thing to hear that we were able to get everyone out alive. I would say, though, that the statement that nobody was wounded is untrue, because he literally just stated right before that the pilot that they recovered is wounded and will be getting treatment. So there are wounded, of course, the WSO is wounded, But still, great to hear that we got him out alive instead of him being captured by the Iranians, where he would most likely not get medical treatment and he'd most likely be subjected to torture. But with that, I hope that does address it the best we can. Still great news to hear nonetheless, and great to see that the U.S. Armed Forces were able to pull off the operation successfully. And so with that, we are going to be moving on and back into our news from the war in Ukraine. And moving us on and into the area of the front lines, actually back into our area of Crimea, we were able to see that the Ukrainians did go after a significant number of air defense systems within this area. And moving us on from the S-400 that was hit, we were then able to see that after it was hit an additional time right here, it would then move us on and into the next clip where we saw that a Tor M2 medium-range air defense system was hit by a Ukrainian drone down here near Feodosia. And we can see that Tor right there. There's a real color picture of it. And there it is, moving like a ship across the fields. And it's about to get obliterated right here. Take a look.
Also, while
Holy.
we're watching this right here, I'm hearing some rumors. I haven't gotten confirmation of this, but I'm hearing some rumors. You remember that video that we saw of all these Iranian civilians apparently going to try to go hunt down the U.S. Weapons officer? That video, you remember that one?
Yeah, I remember that one.
So there's a rumor floating around, and it's not confirmed, want to make that clear, but there's a rumor floating around that apparently the U.S. had to possibly take care of these lunatics that were trying to go and be greedy and try to go turn his pilot over. It sounds like there might have been some firefights possibly with them as well, as they were trying to go get the guy out in the woods for the most part. So I'll be very fascinated to hear the details about this operation. I'm not sure how many details we're going to get about it, but I'll be fascinated to hear it because it sounds like it was a very ugly firefight that took place. And we saw a video earlier suggesting that it was a very tenuous situation, to say the least. So I hope we get some more details.
Yeah, but I mean, like with the civilian side of things, like, well, those civilians shouldn't have been stupid enough to try and go hunt down a U.S. pilot.
Oh yeah, I'm not saying that they shouldn't have. I mean, if these idiots were coming from the city and going out to the woods to go find our guy, I mean, they're fair game at that point. You can't go out there. They've basically become combatants at that point, in my view, because they're out there trying to hunt down our people. So it changes the equation.
Yeah, it certainly does. like you're never going to hear me, folks, on that sort of situation go, oh my God, that is a shame that the Iranians who went out of their way to go and try and capture, beat up, and turn in a U.S. pilot got greased by U.S. Special Forces. No, that's never going to happen. I mean, those guys were trying to find a U.S. pilot to turn him into inevitable torturing and suffering for $60,000 US. If you try and go out there in the woods and do something like that, and U.S. Special Forces happens to find you and mow you down in the process, I mean, that kind of is what it is. But anyways, moving on from that, and on from that information right there, we also were able to hear that an MTLB was also taken out today. One of the ones that has the Gush gun, the GSH-23-2, mounted on the back. Here we can see the Ukrainians showing one of them in use. Isn't it so cool? Well, it's not that cool. The Ukrainians are about to blow this thing sky high. And we can see them coming on in and getting it nice and good. And we can see them also hitting this oil tank here in this rail yard as well.
Oh, rail yard. Oh man, I can't say I'm sad or shedding tears. Railroads.
I get it. He hates railroads. But anyways,
railroads.
Man, I'll tell you this though. Why you don't like railroads? I mean, the Ukrainians are definitely railroading the Russians. That's without a doubt at this point. Oh, heavens be. But moving us on down in the Lehman area, we also were able to see the Ukrainian 80th Separate Support Brigade mining a road that the Russians are about to use for an assault. And we can see them dropping some mines down there on the streets below. Just a couple of little treats and presents, and also blowing up a couple of things before the Russians get down the road. And now we can see the Russians running down the minefield-covered road. Look at them. Oh, and they start cooking. Do you smell what the Ukrainians are cooking?
Food.
Food.
Yeah, Man, just like that cricket or that grasshopper that had to go beg the ants for some help. You remember that? That was a very good tale right there. I feel like politicians should watch that tale. The grasshopper was so arrogant and wouldn't take help from the ants because the ants weren't as good as the grasshopper. You know, the grasshopper and the ant, that whole thing right there. So when the winter hit and the grasshopper, who was arrogant, was totally unprepared and was about to freeze to death, the ants had mercy on the grasshopper and brought them in, and it saved the grasshopper because of his arrogance. It was a thing that they taught the children. Don't be arrogant. Make sure that you accept help when it's needed and things like that, and don't ever get too cocky.
Oh, wait a minute. Is that the one from the Disney cartoon?
Yeah.
Oh, that bitch froze to death in the real story. Like, Disney just kind of like glossed over that, but they let the cricket die in the real story, by the way.
That was a grasshopper. That wasn't a cricket.
Well, man, I mean, there was none of the crickets when he asked for help. I mean, like, they literally didn't let him in, and he died out there. In the real story, at least. Disney had to Disneyfy it, so they had to have him saved at the end. But the real story, like the real grasshopper and the ant story, was actually that the grasshopper didn't prepare, and when winter came, he actually went and knocked on the ant's door to have them help him, and they wouldn't help him, and he froze to death. So the moral of the story was, you need to prepare, and you need to think ahead, and also don't count on other people to save you if you screwed yourself over. That was basically the whole moral of that story. In the real one, but Disney had to, make it safe for the kids, although it was nightmare fuel, and it kind of should be, because, people ought to be worried about, screwing themselves over. But they had to make it a little bit more safe and make it where the grasshopper lived and was helped out by the ants. But anyways, with that, it is time for us to move on and into the Zaporizhzhia front, where we also were able to see the 108th Territorial Defense Forces hitting those Russian infantry positions good. Hitting them real good. Oh, look, there they are, like a little anthill up in that tree line. Oh. Oh my goodness. And what do we have here? Oh, what is this? It's a wide view of the tree line. Well, what in the world would ever happen here? It looks like a little bomb hit it. Oh, man, I'm telling you.
You remember the little song? What did it go like?
From what? Like the grasshopper?
The grasshopper had like a fiddle or something like that.
Oh yeah,
He had some instrument, some string instrument or something like that. And he was sitting there, playing a little tune. I remember that tune.
I have fun for a living. Like, yeah, I know it. Like, I remember it now.
Oh,
yeah.
Man. Yeah, that was everything. I forgot the lyrics.
I don't know the whole song. I just remember that part. And he was like making fun of the ants and stuff when he was singing. He was like, "Look at you working like a fool. I'm a simple bum." Like, and then he starved to death of us afterwards. It's like, honestly, man, that was the first story of messing around and finding out, is clowning on people who are working and then basically dying a bum almost. It's like, honestly,
imagine if if you had like the Secretary of War weigh in on this. You see this dumbass grasshopper, totally unprepared. The grasshopper wasn't ready for what was coming. He didn't see it coming. Stupid grasshopper. Had to bring him in with a fiddle.
No, he would make a damn limerick out of it. He'd be like, "Look at that grasshopper trying to act like a real chopper," or some crap like that. And he'd be like, "Oh my God, stop with the stupid ass poems. Stop with the poems."
Warfighter lethality, not
tepid
legality.
Oh!
We want our poems to be written by ChatGPT, not by mere subsystems.
Oh my God, dude! The poems, they're killing me, folks. Can this guy go one press briefing without having to read one of these shitty poems?
Yeah, you got to add in the voice crack too, and also the trembling too, because you realize that the AI didn't write something very good. Apparently, he was like, not the tepid legality. It's like, yeah, you probably should have checked that probably before you started reading it. Honestly, I would have felt like I was, very cringe and embarrassed if I had done something like that.
I want good videos, not a whole bunch of... I don't even know how to make anything rhyme with video. Honestly, I just stopped myself right there. I was like, I can't even think of a word that rhymes with video. But anyways, moving on from that, we also got to see the Ukrainians blow up a major substation today, Melitopol. There it is blowing up. That was the substation, and that's where it was relative to Melitopol. And last but not least, folks, the Ukrainians blew up a couple of control points that the Russians had outside of Enhadar. This is not near the nuclear power plant. It's a couple of miles away, so it's not a threat to the power plant, but they did hit him. He's right, you know. Man, and someone had to make the grasshopper story political. I just saw it. Nowadays, grasshopper gets handouts. Right, you literally, like, dude, literally these days, man, the world is so politicized. You can't say anything without someone trying to politicize it somehow. It's crazy.
Yeah. I will say this though, like, because I see people talking about the whole statement from the president about the Iran situation. It's a little contradictory that, you know, the air is not, we don't have air superiority. I would argue against that we have air superiority, because I mean the fact that we got into a heavy firefight by sending in helicopters to go get the guy out of there, the weapons systems officer, that's not a very positive sign that we have air superiority. Also, the fact that the F-15 was down by a man pad, most likely, that doesn't indicate air superiority either. I mean, the whole reason we had to send special forces in was because they got shot down. So, you know, I think that suggests the opposite.
Yeah, we totally have air supremacy over Iran. An F-15 shot down, an A-10 shot down, 2 Pavehawks so badly damaged they had to RTB, and also a Chinook getting hit in Kuwait. In the midst of all that, definitely lets us know that we have air supremacy without a doubt. I mean, the Iranians clearly can't pose a threat to us because of in our air operation to recover the pilots from our shot down aircraft that was shot down by the Iranians because they clearly posed a threat to the aircraft, went off without a hitch. That means that clearly there's no threat to U.S. aircraft in the region, although the whole mission was about recovering pilots from an aircraft that was shot down. That doesn't really make any sense when you say it like that. But anyways, with that, that is the end of our news for the day, folks, believe it or not. 2 hours and 30 minutes of news. And with that in mind, folks, it is time for us to get on into the second segment of this stream, to where we get to talk to each and every single one of y'all. Sadly, we didn't have a speech from Zelensky today. He was apparently off on business somewhere, and so we didn't get one. But we are going to be making sure to get into the question segment and get to talk to each and every one of you. And it's always a fun time, folks. It's a fun time, to be sure, because we get to talk about literally anything and everything except for religion, politics, climate change, and whether the A-10 is relevant in modern warfare or not. And so, Matthew, without further ado, what do we got?
Okay, so for right now, just to give y'all an overview of what our current situation is, we did cover earlier the breaking news about the infrastructure attacks and Iran crossing a red line earlier by hitting desalination plants inside of Kuwait, and also hitting all kinds of energy infrastructure in Bahrain and Kuwait, and possibly elsewhere also that we're currently hearing rumors about. So we did cover that already. We covered, of course, the very good news that the weapons systems officer was recovered, and we'll learn more details about that as it comes out. In the meantime, though, that is pretty much all of our breaking news that we have at the moment, and we will let y'all know and also break from our question segment if there is something else to cover in the breaking news segment. So in the meantime, though, jumping into our first super chat of the last segment, we do have a $50 support from Cotrail Therapy, and thank you very much for that $50 support, by the way, and we do appreciate that. It's very generous of you. And it said, keep up the great work.
And I would have to say a big thanks to you for that incredible support, and we will try and keep up the great work. We try our best to be able to keep up the news coverage and the analysis to the best quality that we can, and we hope that we've been able to do that once again tonight. And a humongous thanks to you for that incredible support and helping this channel to keep on running, because if it wasn't for folks like you, we wouldn't be able to make this thing possible, and we wouldn't be able to keep it rolling. And so a humongous thanks to you once again. Oprayaka. And with that, it is time for us to move on and into the next one.
And our next super chat goes to Pigeon Post. And thank you very much, Pigeon Post, for that $40 support. And we do appreciate that. And I do not see a comment attached, but we do appreciate your support, Pigeon. And Enforcer, what say you?
And I gotta say, a huge thanks to you for the support, Pigeon Post. And while we didn't see a comment from you on your super chat, we do thank you greatly for the support. Support from the viewers helps this channel to keep on running day in and day out. If it wasn't for folks who directly supported this channel through their super chats and Patreon support, we wouldn't be able to be here running the show right now. And I gotta thank you greatly for that, because if it wasn't for folks like you who went out of their way to do such a thing, we wouldn't be able to make this channel possible for the 221,000 people who have watched tonight. And so a humongous thanks to you so much once again. I hope that does address that incredibly well. And with that, we are on to the next one.
We also have a $30 support from Damien Storm, and thank you very much, Damien, as well for supporting the channel. He said, "Why the hell didn't the U.S. Hit the Russian shipment or intercept the ship if we control the skies?"
The diplomatic fallout from the Russian side. It's a Russian ship with a Russian crew traveling to Iran. And if we hit it with a bomb directly, that could create a major diplomatic incident to where the Russians might have to go to war with us because we've conducted a direct action of war against them in one of their ships. So that's generally why we wouldn't have been able to hit it. And the truth be told, we really can't hit anything that they send down there unless we wanted to try and provoke a war with the Russians, which might not be the greatest of ideas right now, because if we're having a hard time fighting Iran due to poor planning at the top, how badly would it go if we have to fight Iran and Russia simultaneously, and then we still have the poor planning coming from the top? That might not turn out all too well. So I hope that does
Well, we
address
could. But we could get Ukraine to hit it, though. I mean, Ukraine could act as our proxy, essentially, because they're obviously at war with Russia. So if they hit it, it's no big deal. It's just what it is. It's a war. So I mean, they could use sea babies to hit, like if it's a ship that's bringing in, like, for example, weaponry, man pads, and things like that. Ukraine could just hit it and claim it was in self-interest, or they could do the same thing if it was by whatever method they were trying to send it. Ukraine could take it out for the most part, and that would be unless Russia tried to like blame the United States in some tricky narrative or something, it would be hard to prove.
And that is pretty true, actually. We could try and get the Ukrainians to do it, but the thing is that would the Ukrainians want to do it for us? They probably would, but they might want something in return. And of course, everything's always not a one-way street. We would have to give the Ukrainians something to make them encouraged to do stuff that isn't necessarily within the interest of themselves, but is within our interests. So I hope that does address that the best I can, at least in my opinion. And I also saw somebody ask a great question. Why are we assuming that all civilians want to cause harm to the downed-air crew? Well, it's not all of them, but I think you're talking about us saying earlier the whole driving down the highway and breaking out to the hills thing. So generally, we take it as an assumption and a fact that most people, when they go out for a recreational walk, they don't pull off onto the side of the highway in the thousands and pop out of their cars and just go walking randomly into Nowheresville in the middle of the night. Usually most people, when they take a recreational walk, usually they go to a designated park or a walking trail and park their car in a parking lot, and they usually go there during daytime hours. But when there is combat search and rescue teams in the air, and the Iranian government has put out a statement that there's a $60,000 bounty, and then thousands of people are pulling over on the highway, just literally breaking out into the open countryside to go and try and just walk around with flashlights, we generally have the idea that a lot of these people probably aren't out there trying to get in their steps. They're probably trying to look for this U.S. pilot and capture him. So that's generally the reason why we're saying that all of those people who were out there in the hills in the middle of the night with flashlights looking around and stuff probably weren't out there to get some exercise in. That would be fairly odd and irregular, especially for people to do that in the thousands in the middle of the war in the same place that there's a pilot missing, and for a lot of them to have driven in from other areas to do such a thing. So I hope that addresses that question well. That's generally why we were saying a lot of them are probably not wishing well for this pilot, because I bet you a lot of them aren't out there to give the guy a cookie and a pat on the back, considering that they're doing that in the middle of the night. Who in the world would go out in the middle of the night with a flashlight in the thousands in the middle of nowhere where a pilot went down for no reason? So with that, I hope that does address that the best that I can. And with that, we're on to the next one.
And our next one here goes to Truckin' Chef, and thank you very much, Truckin' Chef, for that 20. He said, a side note, Enforcers, I was watching a documentary on Artemis 1, and it looks really cool, and check out the future of space travels and LSA. Now, I haven't seen that. I'll have to check that out. But I did hear that our astronauts who are currently on the way to the moon right now, we obviously saw a really cool picture come out. They took a picture of Earth from their capsule as it was on the way to the moon, which is very beautiful, by the way. It also puts things into perspective when you see something like that. But also, I heard they were complaining about the toilet. Apparently, the toilet is having a problem. So I think the future of space travel must first start with troubleshooting the toilet, I would say, and also possibly the email system as well. But all jokes aside, though, so far it appears to be going pretty smooth, like the mission to the moon for the most part. A couple of glitches, I will say, from a comfort standpoint, if the toilet's glitching, that seems like a bad glitch. But unfortunately, what say you?
I'd have to say, also, did you hear that it's apparently quite cold inside of the cab?
Cold. How cold we talking?
Apparently cold enough that they're having to wear jackets and stuff inside of it, and they're trying to work on getting it warmer. But this is the first mission of its type, so there's going to be a lot of things that they have to fix. So this is kind of expected. That's also why they're not landing on the moon, is because they have to get all of the technical side of things sorted out in reality instead of just in theory. But there's been a couple of problems with the Artemis 2 mission so far, but it's still going off fairly well. It looks like they'll be able to achieve their mission in return, just with some minor inconveniences in the meantime, like the toilet having issues and also it being really cold inside of the cabin that they're inside of. So outside of that, though, Artemis 2 is still going fairly well, which is a good thing to hear. And also, I did pull up Artemis 1, which we're actually looking at right here, and this was actually the very first Artemis mission that was conducted. And let me see if I can show y'all here the actual launch, or the actual Artemis, or the Artemis 1 mission rocket right here, which was apparently launched off in 2021 with not really a lot of fanfare, to be entirely honest with y'all, because I really didn't hear about it all that much. But still, really interesting to see and really neat to know that this was conducted apparently successfully and has paved the way for the Artemis 2 mission, which we're seeing unfolding right now in real time as we're getting closer to the moon. So I hope that does address that incredibly well, and a humongous thanks to you so much once again for support, Truckin' Chef, and helping this channel to keep on running. And with that, we are on to the next one.
And our next one's going to go to Truckin' Chef once again. And thank you very much, good sir, for the second support of the night. He said, keep up the good coverage of the news. It's been for a few years now. And LLT, LSA.
Hey, and thank you so much for enjoying the coverage, Truckin' Chef. We try our best to make sure that the coverage is high quality, that we have a lot of information to cover, and also we have a good bit of analysis to break it down as well with. And I'm glad to know that a lot of people really enjoy this channel. It's crazy to see, you know, how well this channel is going. It's been going incredibly well lately, and we love to know that so many people have been enjoying the show and finding it to be a regular watch these days in their late nights and in their early mornings if you're over in Europe, to be able to get the news of what's going on the day-to-day. So a humongous thanks to you so much once again, Truckin' Chef, for that incredible support and the kind words. And with that, we are on to the next one.
And we also have a live chat question here from none other than SD Swan. He said, do you think this is in response to the reports of Russian-backed separatists in one of the Baltic states trying to do a Crimea 2.0?
I wouldn't know. I wouldn't know at the moment. I have to say I'd declare ignorance on that because I haven't heard of that situation. But I do thank you for an interesting question, but sadly I don't really think I'd be able to answer it. But with that, we are on to the next one.
We also have a super chat from Ian Mitson, and thank you very much, Ian, for that support. He said, if it's not too much of a bother, can I hear Sir Attenborough trying to persuade someone to choose a corgi dog for a pet, please?
Let me go and find it very quickly. This is a Pembroke Welsh Corgi, one of the most incredible creatures that has ever existed on the planet. It is a fairly small dog, but what it makes up for in spirit more accounts for its small size and creatures. It is a very intelligent animal, one that is capable of common arithmetic and deduction. It is much more logical than most of your average voters, and is able to discern how many sheep you have and where to take them. It is also incredibly environmentally friendly. The corgi only eats organic matters, and that means that it is an easily sustainable sort of a creature to sustain. You can easily feed it corpses, dog food, and vegetables, really whatever it prefers. Usually they like cheese. But outside of that, it is truly an amazing animal. And I would highly encourage that every person on the earth has at least one corgi as a pet, maybe even two.
But with that, a humongous thanks to you so much for the support and helping this channel to keep on running. Because if it wasn't for folks like you, we wouldn't be able to make this channel possible. We wouldn't be able to keep it running. And we wouldn't be able to do some David Attenborough impressions here and there. So a big thanks to you so much once again. I hope that does address that incredibly well. And with that, we're on to the next one.
And we also have a $20 support from AMX 10 Speedy Bang Bang. And thank you very much, AMX, for that support. And they said, I'm doing a lot better now and great coverage and busy times ahead. And let's go, Lee Spring Army.
Hey, let's go LSA. And I got to say, a big thanks to you for the support and helping this channel to keep on running. And I got to say, it's a great thing to hear that you're doing a lot better. And thank you so much for enjoying the coverage. We try our best to make sure that the coverage is top quality. And I hope that we have been able to do that once again tonight. So humongous thanks to you so much once again. I hope that does address that well. And with that, we're on to the next one.
All right. And also, let's see here. So believe it or not, like I'm kind of shocked by this, but we actually have images from this rescue operation. I'm baffled that we have images. This is kind of shocking. But let's see here. So, Enforcer, pull these pictures up real quick. Apparently, we're getting images of the Ford Air Base in Iran that was used by U.S. forces to successfully rescue the downed weapons systems officer. And it looks like we possibly see smoke from the pair of C-130s that were destroyed right before they left in the new aircraft that arrived to exfiltrate the WSO and also the special forces that were going in to go get the guy. So that's actually quite remarkable. We have images from it.
That really is something, honestly. I mean, look at that. You can see the two C-130s right there, and then you can see their burning remains right there as well. That's crazy. That's crazy, you know? That's actually really cool. We actually have pictures now of this. Who in the world waited all this time to publish them?
Yeah, I don't know.
That's so interesting. And the fact that the Iranians didn't even know where they were, you know, that's something else as well right there, you know, when you come to think about it. But anyways, with that, very interesting information right there. And with that, we are on to the next one.
We also have a question from Truckin' Chef yet again, and thank you very much for that support, by the way. He said, is there a way you can see who has been here the longest? Just curious, and can you see mine, LOL, and LSA?
And sadly, we really can't, like, it doesn't really give us, like, a whole bunch of information like that, often, really, sadly. But I can try and see here. Let me see here. Date subscribed. Here, let me do it over the lifetime, folks. So, the first person to subscribe that I can publicly see would be, let's see here. Someone, there's a couple of people here. I don't want to like throw out a name just in case that this person is someone who doesn't want their name thrown out. But the first person I can see that is publicly subscribed that has been in the chat for a minute was, let me see here. I'm trying to see if I can find them here really quickly. But sadly, BC Skyman isn't showing up on the list yet because it's starting on the 27th of February. And I'm trying to see. Let's see here, folks. Oh, hold up. So the first person I can see that I've actually seen in the chat recently would be Stormchaser446, which subscribed on the 27th of February of 2022, which would have been about 4 days into the war. One of the next people that I've seen in the chat a whole lot would be, let's see here. I'm trying to find some folks that we would know who are still around today, because actually all these people are on the 27th of February. Oh, let's see here. Shoot. Also, by the way, folks, it only lets me see people who have public subscriptions on. If they have them privatized, it won't tell me. So some people might not be in this list that have been here for a while. But let's see here. One of the people who has been here for a minute. I just saw Dylan Thomas, who's been around for a minute. And also, let's see here. Oh, dang. There are so many people who subscribed on the 27th of February. I'm still going, and it's only the 27th of February, and it's only showing publicly subscribed. So that's a little bit interesting right there. So sadly, I really can't give you any further information than what I have right there is that, you know, it doesn't show everyone who's subscribed, and sadly, it's an incredibly long list, and it's not, like, fully conclusive, but if I went around long enough, I could see how long some people have been here for a while, but generally that's up for people to subscribe and kind of remember, sadly, because we can't really go through and find it easily. But a huge thanks to you for the support and helping this channel to keep it running, and I hope that does address that well, and with that, we are on to the next one.
We also have a 20 from Arar983, and thank you very much, Arar, for that $20 support. He said, Saturday workout, listening to the stream, eat that Costco chicken, and LSA.
And a huge thanks to you for the support, Arar983. And I gotta say, thank you so much for listening to the stream, and I hope that you've had a good time on your Saturday workout. And so a big thanks to you so much once again. I hope that does address that incredibly well. And with that, we are on to the next one.
Also, by the way, if you haven't already, because we have a lot of people still here tonight, if you haven't subscribed, go ahead and subscribe to the channel because we cover breaking news. Tonight, it just happened to be that we went live at our normal time and things started going crazy around our normal time of news. So we were able to cover a breaking news stream basically tonight during our normal time. So if you haven't subscribed, go ahead and smack that subscribe button. We gained about 1,000 subscribers today overall. So feel free to join the channel and get these updates when they're coming out. And also, we have a 20 from Truck and Travels yet again. He said, "Good evening, enforcers. Long live the Leaf Spring Army." Take one from the chat and westbound and down.
Westbound down, loaded up and trucking. And a good evening to you. And I also got to say, long live the Leaf Spring Army. The Leaf Spring Army is an amazing group of people here on the internet. One of the greatest, really. And there's so many people, folks, you just wouldn't believe are a part of this Leaf Spring Army. Truly an incredible thing. Amazing folks from all over. And I got to thank you so much for the support and helping this channel to keep it running. And we will make sure to take one from the chat in your honor. So, Matthew, what do we got?
And the one from the chat goes to Music Uploader. He said, someone is reporting that 53 besieged members were eliminated during the exfiltration along with 9 locals.
We haven't really been able to get any detailed information like that yet. They might have a source that we don't have, or they might just be coming up with a story. But we haven't been able to hear that yet at the moment. Very interesting report. It might be true, might not be. We'll generally have to see once we get further details that we can confirm. But a big thanks to you once again for that incredible question right there. And thank you so much, My Truck and Travels, for sponsoring the live chat and helping this channel to keep it running. And with that, we are on to the next one.
We also have a 20 from Jenna, last name Toolshed. And thank you very much, Jenna, for that $20 support. They said, I thought I'd share some of my Doge check money. You got a Doge check? I wasn't aware that those went out. But they said, I'm loving the golden age. We out of debt yet? Any day now. USA, money bag, muscle.
Oh, that's great to hear. That's great to hear, Jenna. And I got to thank you massively for the support. And I got to say that I haven't gotten the Doge check. I haven't gotten one of those. I heard that they were apparently going to be given out, but I never got one. So I do thank you incredibly for the support and helping this channel to keep on running. And I hope that has addressed that somewhat well. And with that, we're on to the next one.
We also have about a $70 support from none other than BC Skyman. And thank you very much, BC, for that generous support right there. He just threw it in without a comment, and he threw in some super stickers. He said, "You're amazing" on one of them. And he also put in the number 1, the Doge waving the flag. And he also just threw in another 50, by the way.
Oh, my Lord.
For the third support. Oh, look at that. BC Skyman coming in very strong, keeping the channel running. And he also puts in a third super chat, and he has the rocket thing, or the rocket man going out there. It must be Kim Jong-un. I got some Kim Jong-un flying around right here, but Enforcer, what say you?
Rocket Man. We love the Rocket Man. Wonderful guy. And I got to say, a humongous thanks to you for support, BC Scamming, and helping this channel to keep on running. That is a humongous amount of support, and we are massively appreciative of you helping this channel to keep on running. You've been here since day 4. I remember that day 4. That was the first day that this channel actually really hit the radar, folks. Y'all wouldn't believe it, folks. Hitting the radar back then was getting 3.7 thousand live viewers on one stream at the peak. And what's kind of crazy about that, folks, is that tonight, and it is really crazy, folks, because I never think about how far we've come since then, because in my mind mentally, folks, day 4 was the biggest day this channel ever had, because up until then, every day this channel, for the first 4 days, got only about 1 to 5 live viewers per stream, like at the peak. So there was like 1 person watching, and that was literally everybody, or there might be 5. And that night, on the 4th day, at the very end of the stream, it somehow blew up. Like the YouTube algorithm just was like, oh, this is fire, and they put it on the algorithm, and the stream got up to 3.7 thousand people at the peak, and I went crazy. Y'all can probably go back and still watch that stream. It might still be viewable, but I was like, oh my god, this is unbelievable. And I literally got off a stream and just just astounded at the viewership. And now tonight, like, just to give you all an idea here, because this is a fairly normal night these days, we had at the peak tonight 28.3 thousand people here at the peak, which just blows that stream out of the water. And that was a huge one back then in my mind, still is. And these days we just obliterate those figures almost every single day. And I'm gonna thank folks like BC Scammon for being here way back at the start on the 4th day, basically when the channel was literally brand new as far as regular coverage coverage like we do these days, and being here with us since then and supporting the channel and helping us to keep this thing running, because BC Skyman has been a role model example of what a member of the LSA is, and not only that, he's helped this channel to keep on running and has been a long-time viewer of it as well. So a humongous thanks to you so much once again for support. I hope that does address that incredibly well, and with that, we are on to the next one.
And our next one here is going to go to none other than Chef Danny B. And thank you very much, Chef Danny, for that $40 support. And we do appreciate that. And he said, good evening, enforcers. Chef Danny here. I'm late to the show, but I've been listening, though. It's been a long, crazy day. I'm glad to see we rescued the missing American. So when y'all mentioned that, I pumped my fist in the air and LSA.
And I gotta say, a humongous thanks to you, Chef of the LSA, for supporting the channel and being here tonight. Better late than never is what I always say. And also, I gotta say that it was a great thing to hear. Like, I was really excited about that as well. And, you know, it's coming in the midst of a humongous amount of news tonight, but that is absolutely incredible news. I was fairly concerned the guy might get captured and might be tortured by the Iranians. So I was really happy to hear that they were able to get the guy out, generally safe and sound. He's injured a little bit to some extent, but, you know, he's not really bad off, and that's a great thing to know that the guy was not captured by the Iranians. So I was really happy to hear that as well. I would agree. So that's you know, while an F-15 being shot down by the Iranians and then an A-10 being shot down after that in one day isn't good, you know, it's still silver lining to the whole thing and a great achievement at the end of it. We were able to get the pilots out safely. So a big thanks to you so much once again. I hope that does address that incredibly well. And with that, long live the Late Spring Army, and we're on to the next one.
We also have a $20 support from Ben20, and thank you very much, Ben, for that $20 support. He said, I hope the airman's found soon. And also, he was found, thankfully. And he said here that, he said a certain individual should retire from the whole situation. Let's see here. He said, keep up the good efforts and happy Easter, enforcers.
And a big happy Easter to you. And the airman was found, and we were very happy to hear it. You know, I got to say, that's a fortunate thing. You know, time was really starting to really wind down there, because if we hadn't gotten him today, it's highly likely someone would have found him somewhere out there in those hills. But a humongous thanks to you so much once again for the support and helping this channel to keep on running. Because if it wasn't for folks like you, we wouldn't be able to make this channel possible, and we wouldn't have been able to report the good news here tonight. So big thanks to you once again, and we're on to the next one.
We also have a 20 from Ryan Wiles, and Ryan said, is the U.S. strategically weakening itself for an upcoming conflict with China by spending our supply of interceptor missiles on Iran? And yes, we are. That's not anti-American to say that. That's simply being realistic. I've noticed these days that if there's anything out there that's said, it seems like floods of people come in and try to say that we're anti-American for pointing out something that might be a negative thing or a negative aspect of possibly the war. It's actually pro-American to do that, because if there's an oversight being made, the last thing Americans need to do is remain silent about it, because, you know, you're going to basically let these people sleepwalk into a disaster, basically. So if enough people make an uproar about something, then the people making the mistake has to listen at that point. So it's actually pro-American to do that. But I would say that we are strategically weakening ourselves. Right before this Iran war started, we were on the verge of possibly, you know, looking at a war with Russia or China within the next couple of years over Taiwan or Ukraine, or the Baltics, perhaps. So, you know, it's a very not so great time to be deplenishing our stocks like this. And, you know, not everything coming out is fake news. Like, I would tend to believe some of these reports coming out, and I'm not really sure what the U.S. is doing to deal with that. But Enforcer, what say you?
I'd have to say that I would actually agree. We're largely strategically weakening ourselves in terms of available munitions and firepower against our other larger adversaries like China and Russia, where we generally have to prioritize higher-end munitions and equipment because they're going to be larger adversaries to fight. Even Russia is a far deal of a bigger fish to fry than even Iran is, and China is by far the biggest fish to fry, and it's basically like putting Russia and a couple of Irans together and then trying to fight that all as one group. And so I would say that generally, I would agree, it's definitely strategically weakening us. And I gotta say, man, to kind of address it for a minute, there are a lot of people out there, folks, who are just extreme, like, I got to tell y'all, folks, people that are hardly even worth the time of day of talking, that's why they're just banned out right here, because some people don't know what the hell they're talking about, and they act like pointing out a weak point is a bad thing and it makes you hate the United States. but I think you hate the United States a lot more by being stupid enough to pretend like everything's fine. Like, oh my God, we're out of bullets. We can't give, Private Suarez his ammunition for his M4. And then someone says, shut the hell up, you damn America hater. Okay, Juarez, go out there. And then he goes out there and pulls the trigger on his gun. He hears a click, and then he's mowed down by a machine gun from an enemy force. It's like, how American is that? That's just being a stupid idiot and being blinded by some sort of, it's not even patriotism at that point, it's just blind stupidity. And I'm not one for blind stupidity. Like, when I sit there and talk about how we're doing in the war, I sit there and think about how are the citizens going to be affected by this? How many U.S. soldiers are we going to put in danger? We want to minimize the amount of people in the military who are put in danger by our actions. We want to make sure that the least amount of damage is inflicted upon our forces in terms of their health and their lives. And we also want to make sure that the citizenry is affected as little as possible by the war as well. We try and minimize things. So criticism comes from a position of saying this might be a reckless way of doing something, and maybe we would want to do this a little bit better so that way it doesn't affect the citizenry so badly, and it also doesn't end up affecting the military so badly. Like, for days before this F-15 was shot down, I have been saying on air, we're flying these operations really cavalier. We're flying very low and slow to the ground. It seems like we're putting an undue stressor and a risk on these pilots and their aircraft by putting them in these sorts of situations, and a lot of them have come close to getting shot down by manpads. Maybe we need to not conduct sorties like these because they look to be dangerous to these pilots. And then people want to come in and bitch about us and say that it's TDS and it's this and it's that, when we're literally sitting there and saying, look, we don't want a pilot getting shot down in Iran, so that way we have to even go and recover them. We want to make sure that they're as safe as possible. So maybe we need to structure our sorties around making sure that these pilots have the lowest chance of being shot down over Iran. And then somehow that gets people bitching. And then when we point out, oh, look at this, we're running out of interceptors, maybe we want to cut down on our use of high-end weapon systems like JASSMs and Patriots and find ways to conserve ammo so that way we can still deal with the larger threats that are still imminent, like Russia and China. And then people want to say that we hate America because we're looking out for the big picture. The reality of it is, folks, is that people who say that, they're either so stupid they don't know what they're talking about, and I'm just going to be honest with y'all, that's just the truth of it. They're either that stupid that they just don't know what they're talking about, and they don't give a damn, or they are politically biased, so whoever's in charge, and if they like them, they're going to act like there's never anything that can be a criticism, and everything's perfect, and nothing's ever wrong, and they'd rather watch American soldiers get killed and captured than admit that there might be some sort of a shortcoming and try and address it and fix it, which I find to be much more un-American, because something that's the reality of it, folks. Regardless of the decision whatever president makes, whoever is the sitting president, they're not the one who's going to have to die for that decision, at least when it comes to a war. Some guy who's like you and me, who's a no-face, no-name, nobody out there, is going to die for that poor decision. And that's the guys that I'm looking out for when we make a criticism here on this channel, because the president can sit back and say, I want 5,000 U.S. soldiers to sit in Bandar Abbas and wait for a bomb to drop on their head. And no matter how that goes, the president is going to be completely unscathed, not a hair on his head is going to be hurt, but those soldiers could stand to get hurt and killed significantly. And that's why I say stuff like, that's not really a great idea to do, because these guys could get a bomb dropped on their head and they could get wounded and killed. And that's really where my concern lies, is for the average citizen and the soldier. But anyways, with that, a big thanks to you for support and helping this channel to keep on running. And with that, we're on to the next one.
We also have a 20 from Compsaj Builds, and thank you very much for that support, by the way. They said, thanks, and you guys offer the best insights by far.
And thank you so much for the kind words and the support as well, and helping this channel to keep on running. And so a big thanks to you so much once again for support and making this channel possible. And with that, we're on to the next one.
All right, and this one goes to Weather Bear, who puts in a 20, and thank you very much, Weather Bear, as well. They said, thank you so much for the amazing and honest coverage with such an awesome community, and make sure to like and subscribe, everybody, and take care, stay safe, and have a blessed and beautiful Easter, and we have a Savior, and good night all.
And a big thanks to you for the incredible support and the kind words, Weather Bear, and I hope that you have a great Easter along with everyone else as well. And so a huge thanks to you for the support and helping this channel to keep on running. And with that, we're on to the next one.
We also have a 20 from DWRB, who said, hey, evening, everybody. I did just getting off work and checking in to see if the insects are masticating. LSA and happy Easter.
And thank you so much for the support. And the insects are masticating indeed. And a humongous thanks to you for support and a big happy Easter to you. And with that, we are on to the next one.
We also have a 10 from Robert Krogan, and thank you, Robert, as well for the 10. He said, "Good evening, enforcers and LSA," and "Good evening, enforcers and LSA." I think he repeated that twice. He said a little something for the effort.
And a big thanks to you for the support, Robert Krogan, and a big thanks to you for supporting the effort and helping us to keep this thing running and keep the news rolling. So a huge thanks to you once again. I hope that does address that well. And with that, we're on to the next one.
We also have a 10 from Raphael Saya, and thank you, Raphael, as well. He said, "I knew it. Enforcer Matt was dead on the nail with the Russians delivering new weapons to Iran, LLT, LSA." And I had a gut feeling. I said that last night. I said, I think the Iranians might have gotten some new weapon. Now obviously it wasn't an S-500. Like that's not what they got. It was most likely the Verba, the 9K 333. That's likely what they got, because I mean they even signed a deal for it back in the last week of February of this year. So the last step was delivery, and we have seen Russia deliver helicopters right before the war started to Iran. So they were speeding up their weapons deliveries specifically to hurt the United States, by the way. And I would not put it past the Russians to have sped up the Verba deliveries so that way they could do what they did yesterday, which was shoot down U.S. aircraft. So my thing is this. I will say I was right, and honestly, I'm always right. Like I can't remember a time when I was wrong. Really, like Some say that I've been so right so often that I need to be wrong sometimes to make it a little bit more level. But also, by the way, I'm joking. I'm joking. By the way, I can't say that with a straight face. I'm joking. But we got to figure out how we're going to combat that threat, because now that they're using infrared to target, that's a huge problem, because now the planes are largely going to be vulnerable to a large degree. So what are the pilots going to do to deal with that? I mean, we got to think about that. But Enforcer, what say you?
I have to say, Matthew was right that it was Russian provided, but I do have to say though, I have to try and defend myself here a little bit. I did say that it had to be a man-pad. Like I think Matthew yesterday was saying it was probably a surface-to-air missile defense system. I was like, well, that I don't think that would line up, because it would give an RWR signature that would let the pilots know they're getting locked onto, and apparently they didn't know that because they were shot down basically without warning from what we kind of knew. And so I was like, it had to highly likely be a man-pad. Now the thing that I got wrong is I said it highly likely didn't come from outside of the country. I said there might be a chance, but the chance is low. I said it's most likely a domestic weapon or an analogous system they already had access to. That was kind of close, but not quite, because they do have IGLAs, and a Verba is basically an improved IGLA, but it's not an IGLA. So I was wrong on that one, but I was correct on it being a man-pad and a very similar system to what they already had in use, but I got it wrong that it came from outside of the country, and I didn't believe that that would be likely. I said that that would be a low likelihood, and it actually turns out that that was the case. It actually was provided by the Russians. So
you know what that means, though? You know what that means? The Russians either flew them in or they sent them by ship. We did hear, and this is just a speculation, by the way, we have no proof of anything, but we did hear that the Russian ships 72 hours prior to Friday, which was when the U.S. Air Force aircraft got shot down, some Russian ships had arrived through the Caspian to the northern part of Iran. So we don't know if the weapons were possibly transported that way. That's possible, but we don't know. They got them in clearly somehow, and it was roughly, from the report and also the deal that was inked back in February, the deal was about 500 of those Verbas. So apparently they either were very rapidly distributed to the forces, or they happened to just get one to the right unit, one or the other, but obviously not good.
But one thing that I do have to say, folks, and this is why I would say it's definitely a Verba. The Iranians say it's a new weapon, and the Verba is new for them, but also the Verba is identical in how it operates and functions for the man-pad operator as an IGLA. I mean, it has the same targeting and acquisition system as an IGLA. So I would say it definitely has to be a Verba. I mean, it has to be a Verba. That's what it had to be. It's new. It's a slightly improved version of something that they're already trained and familiarized with, meaning that once it came right off the Russian ship, and it had to come off a ship, because we probably would have shot down most anything else that was flying in. Well, maybe not if it was Russian. We might give that red carpet treatment, but if they shipped it in on a ship, they could have taken those Verbas and immediately dispensed them amongst their forces, and their man-pad operators are already familiarized with exactly how it would work, because it's basically an improved IGLA, and it operates the same for an operator. So I would have to say it definitely is highly likely a Verba at this point. And I do have to say, I got most of the detailed analysis right on it had to be a manpad and it had to be something they were familiar with, but I got the big one wrong that it was not from inside of Iran. It was actually imported from Russia. So I did get that one wrong. But anyways, with that, a big thanks to you for support and helping the channel to keep it running, and I hope that does address that well. And with that, we are on to the next one.
We also have a $20 support from John Garner, and thank you very much, John, as well, for that 20. And it's good to see you once again. He said, Happy Easter to all.
And happy Easter to all as well. And a humongous thanks to you, John Garner. And I hope that you have a happy Easter tomorrow as well. And so with that, a big thanks to you so much once again. I hope that has addressed that well. And with that, we are on to the next one.
We also have a 10 from Missouri, who said, Don't prescribe intent on the civilians in the region. Iranians are known for intentionally using traffic jams to slow down regime initiatives, and most don't support the regime. I don't know. Like, I will say it would be fair to give the benefit of the doubt here, but you got to admit, the IRGC or the Iranian government puts out a very lucrative bounty for the civilians to go capture the guy, and then all of a sudden, a flood of civilians start flooding up to the area in which the weapons system officer just happens to be hiding out. Seems a little bit sus to me. It seems like maybe some people might have gotten greedy, or they actually just straight up supported the regime, and they were wanting to pitch in, possibly, which... That's really disgusting, to see that. But Enforcer, what say you?
Well, the fact that they broke out into the hills with flashlights would tell me that they weren't trying to block the roads. I mean, they were certainly out there trying to find someone, because if they were just trying to stop the IRGC and the besieged from getting through, one, why were there dead civilians up there in the hills? Whether they were with the IRGC or the besieged and they were plainclothes, they're basically civilians at that point that are trying to find this guy. Why were they up there getting shot at and killed? And then also on top of that, why do we have videos of a lot of these people hopping right off the highway with flashlights and then running into the hills? That doesn't indicate that they were trying to slow down the besieged in the IRGC. That indicates they're trying to find something in those hills in the middle of the night, and the only thing they could be trying to find is that pilot. And why would they be wanting to find the pilot if they're trying to obstruct the IRGC and the besieged from knowing where he is? That would be helping them to know where the guy's at, because they're actively increasing the number of eyes and ears in the area trying to find the guy. So I would say that it's highly unlikely that all of them were there just trying to help out. It looks like a lot of them were there trying to find this pilot and turn him in to get the cash. But I do thank you for the support and helping this channel to keep running. And maybe we're wrong. I mean, I'm not going to say that we're wrong, but I mean, most of the evidence that we're getting from all the videos we had is not showing a whole bunch of people who were friendly to the United States. It's showing a whole bunch of people who are wanting to break in some dough, at least from what I could tell. But with that, I do thank you for the support and helping this channel to keep on running. And with that, we are on to the next one.
And we also have a $10 support from Raven Patah. And thank you very much, Raven, for that 10. They said, thank you for being pro-American and pro-common sense, Western world-oriented news. And thank you for not joining the mainstream media and their subsidiaries of clown propaganda news. And thank you for that, by the way. Also, I'm not going to name out the people, by the way, but believe it or not, we actually beef with some of the mainstream media out there, and specifically beefing with one magazine. I won't name them because, I'm not trying to start a big beef here, but, beefing with one dying magazine that is very arrogant, by the way, that's been around for a very long time, and they love to come at us all the time, especially on Twitter. They came at us about a month ago, and they came at us again today, or at least one of their people did. So I think mainstream media is getting pissed off because we're young. We're about I'm 25, and Enforcer's about 24 or so. We are obviously educated. I've got a degree in political science and studied that for several years, and Enforcer has his degree in history and studied that for several years. And now we have a moderately successful platform for presenting OSINT and open source information. So I think the legacy media is largely a little bit jealous and kind of pissed off seeing that, because they have an entire apparatus around pushing their narrative. And meanwhile, we're just two people, and we're outperforming some of these outlets that have a whole apparatus. So I think that kind of pisses them off a little bit for the most part. But Enforcer, what say you?
Well, it definitely pisses off some of them. I mean, we know that for sure because they let us know every once in a while. But some of them we actually get along with. Like, there's a couple of military analysts out there in I think it's if I'm not mistaken, Matthew, it's both CNN and Fox that talk to us from time to time on Twitter, if I'm not mistaken.
Well, we're followed by the study, the Institute for the Study of War, and there's an individual from that organization that regularly speaks on Fox News, who's actually one of the top people in that organization, actually, to my understanding. And also, there is a fellow who does geopolitical commentary on CNN. I don't really want to name them, to be honest, because I'm not sure if I would rather not name them on the air. But we do talk to one or two people from either organization.
So, I mean, generally we talk to them from time to time, like on some of the mainstream outlets, and they're nice people and stuff. But I'd have to say that in general, I'm not really a big fan of most mainstream media outlets at all because I find it that they have commercialized and sensationalized news and politicized news to such a degree that you really can't even consider it news anymore. Like, I remember the one guy you're talking about, man. I remember that clip that you showed me when he was on Fox, and that one guy was like, I have to make it clear that I respect the armed forces. I love them a great deal. And now, in any question, any statements that I'm about to say, hey, you just eventually said, well, just get on with it, man. Like, what are you wanting to ask? Ask the question. Like, and it was like the guy, and then the guy paused for a second, and then he went right back into it. He was like, oh, I have to say, I have absolute respect for the armed forces. It's like, golly, it's like, that kind of stuff is what kills people with the mainstream news. Like, you can't take it because it's like it's just so canned and hashed and scripted and no substance. Like, of course people respect the armed forces. We're asking questions to get down to the bottom of things here. It's a given that you respect the armed forces. If you're having to go out of your way to make it clear that badly, I mean, how stupid is your audience? Like our audience is fairly smart and discerning. It's like we don't have to sit here every single night on air and basically give a giant red carpet verbally to the armed forces. I mean, all of y'all know we respect it. We have their armed forces medley in the intro that we made and commissioned ourselves. If we hated the armed forces, why would we do that? That wouldn't make any sense. But I would
what was the president? What was the president that was always paranoid that the elite or like the high end social circles were out for him? Was it Nixon?
Yeah,
it was Nixon right there. I don't feel quite as paranoid as Nixon, but at the same time though, it's like we're not a part of the the quote unquote in group necessarily. We know people that are in it, but we're not necessarily like running in those circles. We're definitely not running those circles every day. Actually, so it's like I feel like they kind of like silently kind of like hate, not all of them, but some of them kind of like silently hate from the sidelines a little bit. It's like, well, it's like people, I mean, I would assume people find what we're presenting to be informative or they wouldn't be here because, I would assume it's not as charity. People aren't just showing up just to make us feel good. They're here because they want to hear the news and they think that we do it pretty decently. So I'm like, if y'all want to compete, how about you actually like do your job and also actually compete instead of just being jealous and, throwing jabs.
Yeah, I mean, like, it's like, geez, it's like, it's ridiculous, honestly, when you watch the news. Like, I do not watch the news at all, folks, but when Matthew and me lived together in Enforcer HQ 2.0, he would have the TV on, and he would rotate them through some of the mainstream news outlets, and I would die when I would walk into those rooms, like, mentally. Like, I'd be like, oh my god. I was like, this is the trash they have on? And they dumb it down, folks, to where it's, like, basically explaining it to third graders. So they'll be like, a manpad is a missile launcher, and it launches missiles at planes, and it seeks the jet engines, and it travels, and it hits with big explosion. It's like, what are we, cavemen? It's like, come on. It's like, people aren't this stupid. I mean, like, and also on top of that, it's like I don't I'll have to say this, folks. I'm not one to be the academic type that has to explain everything in the most technical of terms, but I also got to say, I'm not going to stupefy coverage because I want to reach the lowest common denominator of an audience. Like, it's like if an audience wants to know what's going on, they kind of need to learn what's going on, because if you stupefy everything to that point, you have the whole public like it is right now, just like stupefied to the point that they don't even know what's what. Like they can't even explain anything. They don't know how anything works because no one ever tells them. No one ever educates them, and no one even starts them off with a basic understanding of it, or assuming that they have a basic understanding of it, which forces them to learn about it. But I would have to say I don't like the mainstream news that much either, Raven. I thank you so much for enjoying our coverage, because I hope that it's very much different, a lot more accurate, and a lot more researched and detailed than most mainstream news outlets can ever afford. So a big thanks to you so much once again. I hope that does address that well. And with that, we are on to the next one.
Also, Martha said, Enforcers, didn't you two go to law school also? And yes, we did. Like, I went to law school for the first 1L year, and I did well. And like, here's the most recent attack I've been seeing. I've been seeing people trying to smear us by saying they're law school dropouts. It's like I chose to leave. Like I voluntarily left, and I had very good grades. I was like near the top of my class when I left, and I chose to leave law school by choice. It wasn't because they kicked me out. I could have kept going in the thing and been miserable, but I could have kept going and just gotten my law degree if I wanted it. But then I'd have been in some serious debt at that point, which I wouldn't want to take on because it really wasn't my thing for the most part. But no, it's like hell. I was doing pretty damn good in there, but I was like I would rather do this. I wasn't happy whatsoever in law school. But yeah, I do have one L for the most part, largely under my belt.
Yeah, I mean, both of us do, actually, because we dropped out basically at the same time. Matthew dropped out first, and then I think it was like a day later I dropped out. Like, I went one more day, and then I gave up because, honestly, folks, I would rather do this than law school. And on top of that, you can't even get a job in the legal field at this point if you're graduating law school with a JD and passing the bar at this point, because AI is replacing most of those entry-level jobs in the legal field that those people would have taken on. So, honestly, kind of jump ship at the right time on that one. And also, I didn't like it at all. It's like, hell, it's like if someone said a law school dropout, it's like, well, did you go to law school at all? It's like, most of the people
It's
saying
like-
that never even went to law school. It's like, who the hell are you to say anything?
Why don't they lob that insult at anybody else? Like, yeah, it wasn't like all the tech bros like notoriously drop out of Harvard and stuff like that. How come they don't call them college dropouts?
Oh, because, like, clearly those guys are just, the blessed ones who can't say anything like that. It's like, honestly, it's like, also, it's like, I could give a damn. It's like, it's like, if I wanted to drop out, I'll drop out. It's like, we dropped out to go do this. And to be entirely honest with y'all, I'd rather do this than be an attorney or even have a JD. I mean, like, and all, like, if anyone had ever had our experience that we had in law school, it was miserable. It wasn't good in any way. Like, and then,
Oh man, I wasn't trying to get a JD, no Vance.
they said get a JD and advance. I said JD no Vance. Like, man, and then I got out. But beyond that, that's honestly my 2 cents on that. It's like, I don't really care. And on top of that, a lot of people, the funny thing is, folks, is that a lot of people want to diss on the channel, like, by saying that. And it's like, well, you still watch it and know who we are. So apparently we're successful doing things that aren't related to law school or the law. So, checkmate. But anyways, with that, we're on to the next one.
We also have a 20 from Gary D. And thank you very much, Gary, for that $20 support. And we do appreciate that. He only left a support with no comment, but we appreciate that. And Enforcer, what say you?
And I got to thank you so much for the support, Gary, because your support is helping this channel to keep on running. And so a big thanks to you once again. And we're on to the next one.
We also have a 10 from Live Animal, and thank you very much, Live Animal, as well for that support. They said that the Iranian attack on Kuwait facilities is a preemptive response to the threat of attacking Iran's infrastructure.
It might be, but it doesn't justify it, because usually under how wars work, you generally have to be attacked that way first to then justify reciprocal attacks of that nature. So generally they're jumping the gun and actually giving us justification at this point to start striking critical infrastructure in their country if we would deem that to be necessary. So, I mean, kind of at this point, folks, just to be honest with y'all, beforehand, I would be saying, is it a war crime? Is it not? At this point, because of what they did to Kuwait today, we don't even have to ask that. It could be a war crime, but they've already conducted that against our allies, so now we have a reciprocal reason to conduct that on them. So, kind of unfortunate for them that they were too stupid and premature to conduct an action like that, because now they can't complain that the U.S. is doing it to them. So, a big thanks to you once again for support and helping this channel to keep on running. And with that, we are on to the next one.
And our next one goes to, also real quick, I'm going to make a super quick point. Miguel Morales said, smart move. I'm sure the bros would be miserable being lawyers.
Yes.
Also, by the way, we have lawyers in the chat, by the way. Like, I know a few lawyers that actually watch our stream and stuff like that. No offense to them, by the way. But the law profession is going to be probably not surviving that well, the AI revolution. I didn't see that coming when I dropped out. Like, I didn't even know it was going to be really that bad for the most part. But it looks like that profession will largely be hit pretty hard by it. We're already seeing, like, for example, entry-level positions like paralegals and things like that is already starting to suffer because those entry-level jobs can be easily replaced by AI. So it's now really hard to get a job as a law school graduate. That's going to be a problem trying to find a job, and they were already hard enough to come by even without the AI situation. So I'm glad I didn't, because I was about to be in some six-figure debt leaving law school, and I would hate to be in a position where you couldn't even find a job after taking on debt like that. But moving into our next one, this one goes to Rian, who puts in a 10. He said, I love the work and blessings.
And a big thanks to you for the support and helping this channel to keep running. And thank you so much for the kind words. And with that, we're on to the next one.
And our next one goes to Vic the Donkey. And thank you very much, Vic, for that 10. He said, second crew member recovered as per Al Jazeera.
And we actually were able to confirm that by the words of the president. So we do have been able to confirm that the WSO is luckily safe and sound. So a big thanks to you once again. And with that, we're on to the next one.
We also have here a 10 from Some Guy, and thank you very much, Some Guy, for that support. He said, Enforcer, I'm sorry, because I truly do appreciate both of you and your work, but you are not unbiased in the least. It's impossible to be here, but good Lord, words of wisdom, regardless, here's 10. We're not completely unbiased. We're obviously pro-American, and also we're pro-Western. So, we're not, I guess technically we're not unbiased, but, we try to keep it as objective as possible. But Enforcer, what say you?
Well, I would have to agree with that. We're clearly pro-American and pro-Western. We've always made that clear that that's an inherent bias we have. But if you're trying to say that we're politically biased or something along those lines, that's not the case at all. If you hear me sound like I'm unhappy with someone, I'm unhappy with them because they're making clearly bad decisions, not because they're of a political group or a specific person that people don't like. And, that sort of a categorization is largely trying to simplify and sugarcoat the whole thing to make it sound like any criticisms of a guy that you might like, and I'm assuming that you like whoever is the president right now, is unwarranted, even though it is, because it's warranted no matter who it is if they're doing something that doesn't really look like it's the best interest of the country. That's called having analysis. If we sat there and said about every president that they were perfect and they never did anything wrong, then we're not doing analysis, that's propagandizing. And then if we only did that for one political group and not the other, that's also propagandizing with a political spin, and that's no longer analysis. So I thank you for the support and helping the channel to keep on running. And with that, we are on to the next one.
We also have a $10 support from Music Uploader, who said, why is a colonel carrying out missions? And am I missing something? Because as far as I know, it's rare to even see a LTC be operational.
Well, generally in the Air Force, pilots are always of an officer grade. As a matter of fact, they're always officer grade. You're never going to see like a master sergeant or something like that, the Air Force equivalent. Which, oh hell, what would the Air Force equivalent be of a master sergeant? We'll just say a technical sergeant, something along those lines. You're never going to see one of them flying an F-15. It's always going to be an officer. So usually like a major, a colonel, or something along those lines. So that's generally why there was a colonel that was on the ground and stuck in Iran, is because those are the kind of guys who fly the aircraft. So a big thanks to you once again for the support and helping this channel to keep on running. And with that, we're on to the next one.
And we also have a massive $100 support from Red Bodie. And thank you very much for that very generous support, by the way. I think that is the largest super chat of the night. Hey! And he said, thank you for the insightful coverage. And I've been watching in for some time, now related to my work. And I'm just a contractor now, stateside. But I'll be in country soon somewhere. And keep it up. And my boss at BDS also watches too, LOL.
Hey, and thank you so much for the incredible support, Red Bodie, and thank you so much for enjoying our coverage. And I got to say that it's wonderful to know that folks like you and your boss at BDS are watching. We love to know that we're able to provide news to as many people as we can in the country, and hopefully of the highest quality possible. And so a humongous thanks to you so much once again, and also great to hear that you're a contractor, and you'll be in country soon somewhere. I hope that you stay safe out there and have a good time. And a huge thanks to you so much once again. And with that, we are on to the next one.
And our next super chat is going to go to Tyler Sprague, who put in a 10. He said that this will definitely be the sequel for Behind Enemy Lines. The 2 in the title will have double meaning as well, an LSA.
And a big thanks to you for support, Tyler Sprague, and perhaps so, maybe so. But a huge thanks to you once again, and we are on to the next one.
We also have a $30 support from Game Theory, and thank you very much, Game Theory, for that 30. And they said CPAs are embracing AI fast, but the profession is still catching up and making AI-savvy mentors invaluable as firms actively seek people to help automate workflows.
And yeah, that is something that's actually catching most industries by storm. And it's really interesting because you can go to college and get educated in a specific field that should have been a well-paying and guaranteed job. And nowadays, that's not the case. People are getting laid off from accounting firms, from law firms, and all such things because AI is able to streamline the workflow and significantly decrease the workforces for those sorts of jobs, which is pretty unfortunate for a lot of those people who are getting unemployed. But a huge thanks to you for the support and helping this channel to keep on running. And with that, we are on to the next one.
We also have a 10 from John Garner yet again. He said, "You can do it, Forrest."
You can do it, Forrest. But a huge thanks to you for support. And with that, we're on the next one.
And we also have a 10 from Miss Destiny, who said, "Hello, Matt, and hello, Andrew."
That's not my name. Who are you talking to? I'm just kidding, by the way. A big thanks to you for
hello.
support. And a big hello to you. A big hello. Hello to you. I hope you're doing well out there. And a big thanks to you once again. And with that, we're on to the next one.
We also have here from, I don't know why, but that hello right there just made me think about the thing I did today. Real quick, folks, we're starting to run late on time, though. I got to make this fast. But I went mountain biking earlier today because I try to get out and do at least one thing a day, physical activity-wise. I try to go and do something. So I went mountain biking, and I jumped off this, like new mountain bike trail that comes down off the side of the mountain and stuff like that. And I didn't know how steep it was going to be. So I was flying over these hills, like basically jumping over these massive hills, and just thankfully I didn't lose it. Like I went all the way down this mountain and stuff, never lost it once, but it was wild though. I should have worn a GoPro. But anyway, so jumping into our next one, this one goes to Cookie, who puts in a 10, and thank you very much, Cookie, for that support. And it said LSA.
LSA, and a big thanks to you for support and helping this channel to keep on running. And with that, we are on to the next one.
We also have a 5 from Bob Dobbs, who said ground war is inevitable at this point, and what a disaster.
Well, I hope it doesn't turn out to be too big of a disaster, and hopefully we'll see that casualties are incredibly low, and we try and minimize them as much as possible. But a huge thanks to you for support and helping this channel to keep it running. And with that, we are on to the next one.
We also have a 5 from Steve Whitus, who said the missing weapons officer probably has a beacon. No?
He actually has something akin to a little transponder and kind of communication set that he's able to communicate with and also kind of ping his location, but that has to be used very intermittently because keeping it on constantly can give away his location. So I hope that does address it the best I can, and a big thanks to you for support and helping this channel to keep it running. And with that, we are on to the next one.
We also have a 5 from Com, who said, by the way, Polish Prime Minister Donald Tusk is pronounced U, like two, like no two, and two SK, not like large tooth. You're doing great work here.
Thank you so much for the support and sharing that with us. That's very interesting information to hear, and I thank you greatly for that. And so a huge thanks to you once again. I hope that does address that well. And with that, we're on to the next one.
We also have a 5 from Live Animal, who said, are the search and rescue forces walking into an ambush?
It appears not, because they were able to make it out successfully. So big thanks to you so much once again. I hope that does address that well. And with that, we are on to the next one.
We also have a 5 from Frosty Rotor, who said, at this point, you guys should just take over for U.S. intelligence.
I mean, honestly, you know, as far as open source intelligence goes, it's not that bad work. You know, maybe they want to give us a jab one day. You know, maybe they want to give us a jab. Come on, I mean, come on, guys, we've been working for you forever up there. They gotta give us a real offer for a job. All right, we've been sitting here plugging the U.S. government for a while. The guys up at Langley need to mail us a letter. I mean, come on, really. I'm just playing, by the way. But a big thanks to you so much once again. And to be honest with you, I'd rather work independently. But with that, we're on to the next one.
We also have a 5 from Angel and a 5 from Mark Dixon. And thank you both very much for that support, and we appreciate that. We also have a 5 from Live Animal. He said, can a German man avoid the travel ban? I don't know about if we could read that one right there. I don't know. But thank you very much, Live Animal, for that support once again. And Live Animal also said, are the search and rescue forces walking into an ambush?
And we already addressed that one. But a big thanks to you for support. And with that, we are on to the next one.
Oh, we already addressed that one, did we?
Oh, yeah, we did. We got to keep it moving, though. Like Amazon Prime, you know?
So our next one goes to Crackerjack, who puts in a 5 and said, let's see here. I don't know. I'll have to skip on this one, but thank you very much for the support. We also have a 5 from The Bearded, who said, Matt Bot Removal Fund. And thank you very much for the Bot Removal Fund right there tonight. I've been having to swing the band hammer left and right, I must say. It's been quite a thing, but thank you very much, The Bearded, for that support. We also have a 5 from Borbula, who said, thank you for the hard work.
And thank you so much for enjoying our hard work and supporting it, because you're helping out the American worker here. But a big thanks to you once again, and we're on to the next one.
We also have a 5 from Saintly Beginnings, who said sharing live satellite images is a security risk, not necessarily to hide failure, and please report on the massacre that happened in Nigeria by a certain group.
That was actually a long time ago. We wouldn't be reporting on that. We would basically be documentizing that. I do thank you for the support, and also we're not saying live. It was a 2-week hold. Now it's a permanent hold from what we're hearing allegedly. So a big thanks to you for the support and helping this channel to keep it running. And with that, we're on to the next one.
We also have a 5 from Murphy Madness and Rogue 47, and a huge shout out to both of you for that support. We also have here a 5 from Oliver, who said, happy Easter all, and amazing that pilot was saved, and glad that everyone can still have fun with someone and foreign affairs, and cheers.
And a big thanks to you for supporting. It's always great to hear that the pilot was saved successfully. And so a big thanks to you so much once again for support and helping this channel to keep on running. And with that, we are on to the next one.
We also have a 5 from DWRB, who said the Enforcer Bros law firm, perhaps in a different timeline.
Oh, maybe. But a big thanks to you so much once again. I hope that does address that well. And with that, we are on to the next one.
Also, a big shout out to Jerry Ingram for putting in a 2, along with Suitcase to You, who also put in a 2, and also Sam Crenshaw, who said, "You guys rock." And thank you all 3 for that support and the kind words as well. We also have a 2 from Lennox Hill, who said, "Live stream media saying both have been recovered."
And that is true. And we were able to report that here live on air as soon as it happened. So a big thanks to you once again. And we're on to the next one.
We also have a 2 from Purified, who said, "Happy Day of the Bunny."
Oh, yeah, and a big happy Easter to everyone once again. I hope you'll have a blast tomorrow. And so big thanks to you once again. And with that, we're on to the next one.
We also have a 2 from Bewildered, who said, "Do you see hitting nuclear plants as a war crime?"
Yes, and so a big thanks to you for support. And we're on to the next one.
We also have a 2 from Jason Curling, who said, "Do think start rationing iron like did in World War II?"
I'm not sure. We might, though. We generally have to see how badly it would get. But a big thanks to you so much once again for helping this channel to keep on running. And with that, we're on to the next one.
We also have a 2 from Bruce Lee, who said, "Starting CDL school on Monday. Company fuel card, though."
And I got to say, a big thanks to you for the support. And I got to say, a company fuel card, though. I mean, that's kind of beneficial, actually. That's pretty nice. And so a big thanks to you so much once again for support and helping this channel to keep on running. And with that, we are on to the next one.
We also have a 2 from Wyatt Logan, who said, "I've been here since day 150. How did we end up here in LSA?"
And a big thanks to you for the support. And it's a long story. You'd have to sit down for, I don't know, about 1,350 days to catch up. But big thanks to you for the support and helping this channel to keep it running. And with that, we're on to the next one.
And up next, we have a 1 from Plazoth, and thank you, Plazoth, for that support as always. And we also have a 2 from Ivy Exotics, who said the second pilot just got rescued, and it was just confirmed. And we did see that earlier, by the way, and that was confirmed. But thank you both very much for that support, and we do appreciate that. And with that, folks, it is now time to address live chat questions and also our Morse code decoders of the night. And we have some good questions to get to. But once again, a huge shout out to everybody once more for helping to support the channel with those super chats. We also have the Morse code decoders. Tonight we had Paul, Kevin, Mason, Joni, Norm, Arabelle, Heroy Fluffiness, Kush, Coeteric Sire, and Brian Blairstown. They said the Morse says, "Oh, man. You have to tell me if this is for real or not this time, like really, in LLT, LSA."
And ding, 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 shh. That's the Morse code message tonight. I got to tell y'all, folks, I didn't even know what to put in that thing, so I just put something random in there, and y'all still got it right. That's crazy. And a humongous congrats to y'all and the Lee Springer Cinema Corps for getting that correct time and time again. Truly amazing stuff. And so with that, it is time for us to get on into our live chats, but sadly, folks, due to time constraints, we'll only be able to get 3. 3, I tell you, 3. And so with that, we're on to the third to last question of the night.
And this one is going to go to none other than AF Kaplan, who said, "If it's confirmed that Iran shot down our F-15 with a weapon provided by Russia, what will our government do, if anything?"
Let's see. Probably nothing, to be entirely honest with you. Probably knowing how it's been going, we'll probably hear a statement from someone in the U.S. government saying that he doubt that it was used because they asked the Russians, and the Russians told them that that wasn't their weapon and everything's good, and Russia loves America. We're just trying to get your guys killed in the Middle East for funsies, you know? So that'll be my honest answer to you, unfortunately, is that we probably just act like that's not the case, even if it is. But with that, we are on to the next one. The second to last question of the night.
And this one goes to Mike, who said, "Do you think Iran would bomb their own nuclear reactor while blaming the Allies and in hopes to poison and hurt their Gulf neighbors and any American soldiers in the adjacent areas?"
Probably not, because it would knock out a critical power installation for themselves. It would irradiate a significant amount of southern Iran along with the Persian Gulf, and that generally wouldn't do them any good. I'm not to say that they wouldn't do it, but it would screw themselves. It would screw the Iranians over about as much as it would screw everyone else over. So for that reason, there's not really an inherent benefit on their end to do it. They'd be causing themselves as much harm, so they probably wouldn't. But I hope that does address that the best I can. And with that, we are on to the final question of the night. And so, who is the lucky last person who threw in the lucky last question of the night?
And that viewer is Alexander, who said, "How many Iranian civilians are trying to get to the region where the plane was downed?"
Quite a lot of them. I can't say an exact number, but it was a decent number. At least dozens, maybe even hundreds, I would assume at the moment. So I hope that does address that incredibly well, and we have reached the end of tonight's stream. I've got to thank each and every single one of you for enjoying this show tonight. It's been an absolute honor and a pleasure to be able to cover this news for y'all, and also the great news that the weapons systems operator was recovered successfully tonight and is alive. And so great news to hear for sure. And so I got to thank you all so much once again for watching tonight, and I got to give a huge shout out to the 28.3 thousand people who are here at the peak and the 260,000 people who watched this show over the course of the entirety of the stream. We thank you all so much once again for watching. We will see you all tomorrow at 10 p.m. Eastern Time to cover the next 24 hours of news from around the world, and also the Sunday night fundraiser. And if there is a short war video to be made, Enforcer Matt will be the one making that short war video. And so with that, good night, good luck, take care, stay safe, Slava Ukraini, Haram Slava, long live the Late Spring Army, and long live the Republic.
And with that, folks, thank you all once again for joining us on another night of the War News stream. Tonight, a whopping 260,000 people joined us by the end of the stream, and we hope to see you all tomorrow as well. And of course, tomorrow is Easter, but we will be running our normal news coverage tomorrow because, of course, who knows what in the hell is going to happen tomorrow. These days, it's happening crazy stuff every single day at this point. But we hope to see you all tomorrow, and maybe on a short war video as well, if there's enough news to cover. But with that, folks, thank you all once again, and of course, Slava Ukraine, Heroam Slava, get some rest, and good night.
To the